Hey, Kansas City. Scribe is a world-renowned artist who has blessed our streets with his talents for over 30 years. His journey to Kansas City includes growing up in the home of a pastor, living in Israel, and several parts of the United States. From doing night runs to tag his name in the early 90s with the ATT Crew, to his first mural in Kansas City at Big Dudes, to the infamous Love Kansas City mural on Southwest Boulevard, and now his Scribbleverse Studios, where he focuses creating safe environments for all children. We talk about it all. Scribe is a man of many talents, but his humility and genuine love of our city shines bright. Thank you, Scribe, for all you have done and continue to do for us here in Kansas City. This is Enterrupt KC. Enjoy this episode.
Welcome back to Enterrupt KC, the podcast dedicated to people, places, and things right here in Kansas City. I'm your man D-Rod. We got JL right here, and we got Nick behind the scenes, man.
Nick behind the scenes,
the scenes, man, making it silky smooth, right?
Man, D-Rod, I'll tell you what, man, we are getting ready to enter another Super Bowl Chiefs season, and you know we always say this, right? Like, hey, we ain't a sports podcast, but we do love our teams.
Yeah, we leave that to other people.
And you know, I had to go out and grab a flag, man.
Yeah, man.
You had to represent, man.
They put them out there today, man.
Yeah,
I got mine.
I ain't gonna lie, I got a handful of these things. Because,
did you?
Yeah, man. You know, you got to, man. Like, man, we might live long enough to the Chiefs might suck again, right?
Yeah.
So,
you know, I heard, I don't know how true this is, but like one of those flags for 1 year is really in high demand, and like the one in like $500 for them or something.
No way. I probably got it.
Well, I think they said it was like the 2015 or something. One of those flags. I don't know, man. Huh. So anybody out there got one?
Give it to us,
man. Let's get that, man. We'll put you on. We'll put you in the seat. Give us a flag. Even trade.
Another couple things, man, I wanted to mention just real quick. We are going to be at Fiesta Hispana.
Yes, sir.
September 14th,
yes, sir.
2 to 5 p.m. So anybody listening in on this, down there at the American Royal, Fiesta Hispana, September 14th, 2 to 5 p.m., man. Come check us out, man. Have some fun.
Yeah, come holler at us, man.
We're excited. We talk about Kansas City.
Yeah.
Talk about all kinds of stuff, D-Rod.
Man, we'll put you on the mic. We'll put you on the video, man. Get you a little, minutes of fame or something.
Little couple things,
right?
Couple things with us.
Probably do something.
Do
a couple salutes or something.
Couple salutes. You know, we'll talk about all kinds of stuff.
Man, come down and come holler at us, man. We'll be down there in Lot B, man. Come look for us and let's just shoot the shit.
Yep. Man, we got to get to our guest though, man.
Oh yeah, man.
I mean, this individual, man. I was driving here. I can't wait to talk to this individual about everything they've been doing for decades now in Kansas City. This spot we're in alone is just like wow.
It's a masterpiece, man. I mean, you can. I mean, just so much to look at, and you guys, who are watching this.
I want to know how long it took to do this.
Behind us, man. I mean, you guys will see it, but
it's incredible.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
It's incredible, man. So, personal, man, just like growing up, man, just like you see this person, just like, wow, man, look at that, right?
Well, those of you people that don't know who's responsible for a lot of the art, a lot of the creations that have been around Kansas City and even in the hospitals, right? I mean, I've been to them, man, many times, sometimes once a week, twice a week. I had a young one that was always sick, and I was always there, and I was like, man, look at that. So
let's get right down to it, man.
Let's do it, man.
Let's interrupt our guest, man. And with that, D-Rod, we mean introduce our guest, none other than the legend, man, Kansas City street art legend himself, Mr. Scribe, man. What is up, Scribe?
How's it going, guys? Thank you so much for having me.
Hey.
Appreciate the kind words.
The honor is ours, man.
Bro, you don't even know, Scribe. Like, it's such an honor to be sitting here with you, bro. Like,
I appreciate it.
I mean, just like look in front of you, man. Like,
man.
You got your own book now. You got your own characters, stickers, and then we can't wait to talk about about that
Yeah,
piece
we're gonna
right
talk
there.
about all that.
Yeah.
Man, but tell Kansas City Scribe, like, man, where are we right now?
Here's your opportunity to participate in our giveaway for Scribe's episode. All you have to do is subscribe to our YouTube channel, share this episode on one of the social media outlets that we are on, and tag Enterrupt KC, asking people to watch this episode. You can win one of the 3 objects in front of Scribe on this table. Have fun and enjoy this episode.
Currently, we're at a place called the Dojo on Oak. It was purchased by former Chiefs player Eric Berry. He was kind of using it as like a man cave space.
Yeah.
And when I was painting the inside of this space and getting it ready for him, he was also working out in the back room and getting himself ready to go back and play for his final season with the Chiefs.
Okay.
So he hung out around here a lot.
Yeah.
I'd see him. He was an amazing, dedicated person.
Yeah.
But he's since moved on, and he's gone back towards like the Atlanta area.
Right.
And this place is rented out now.
So it's like a VRBO now?
It is. It
Okay.
is. Yeah. And so you can, a lot of people that come into town and go to these concerts and stuff, they rent this out. And there's a beautiful upstairs to this place. And it's also used for other kinds of like private events and stuff.
Yeah.
But
Nice. The
Yeah.
dojo.
yeah, just look up the dojo on Oak.
Dojo
Oak
on
Street.
Oak, man.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, listen, Scribe, man, there's so much to get into with you, brother. Like, I mean, I was sitting here, D-Rob, preparing for this man. Like, okay,
Yeah.
like we know we want to talk about this. We know, and then the list just kept going, So we just want to respect your time, man, and with you here tonight, and just get right down to it. How's that sound?
That sounds good. I'll try not to ramble.
It sounds
Go
good.
ahead,
brother.
man.
Sounds
Go
good.
ahead.
We want to hear some crazy stories, though.
Oh, man.
All right, bro. So, thing we like to do, Scribe, man, we're all about grabbing your story, man. So, man, just tell us, man, like, where are you from originally?
That's a loaded question.
Yeah.
So my family is originally from the Tulsa, Oklahoma area. I was born in Denver. Spent time in Tulsa. Grew up for about 5 years in Jerusalem, Israel.
Wow.
Nice.
And then and bounced, not moving, but just like traveled around that area for a little bit. Lived in London for a minute, then ended up in Tulsa again. Ended up in California, San Mateo, San Jose, San Francisco.
Sheesh.
And then ended up in Boston for my high school years.
Okay.
And the reason why I ended up in Kansas City was I got into the Kansas City Art Institute.
Oh, okay.
Back in 93.
93. Okay. So, like, all that moving around, I mean, generally, man, when people say that, like, it's like a military family or something.
Similar, like a different kind of army, but it's my dad's a pastor.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it's, like
Well, Jerusalem makes a lot of sense now.
Same rules, I guess.
Yeah,
in some
yeah,
ways.
yeah.
But my dad's a pastor. He has a church. Both him and my mom have a church in Beverly, Massachusetts. Now they moved.
Okay.
They moved right outside of the like Boston area.
Oh, man. Nice,
Yep.
man. Nice. So, growing up, I mean, just in that environment, like, did art just become something like to get your mind going, or was it just something that you felt just real passionate about, even at like a young age?
When I look back on living in Israel, I was watching like Juan's episode, and he was talking about not having a lot of money, no toys and stuff like that. And that was pretty similar for me. When we moved over to Israel, we didn't, it sounds like a big deal, and that it would cost a lot of money. And this is early 80s. And so they gave up everything to go there. And then I was living around people who spoke different languages.
Yeah.
So I just started getting into drawing more. And then I ended up going to a school where most of the kids spoke English. It was an Anglican school, which is like related to the Anglican Church in Great Britain.
Gotcha.
And so a lot of kids whose parents worked in like international industries and stuff like that all ended up going to school there. So I had friends from Sweden and Ghana and Mexico and all these different countries because their parents were there for different reasons, whether they work for the UN or some other international agency. So that was a really beautiful thing to be around like that much diversity and that many different kids. And my dad was a history teacher there.
Oh man, did you pick up any of those languages at all?
No. I mean, everybody was speaking English, and you know, in like when I would play in the neighborhood, I lived in both a Jewish neighborhood at one point and an Arab neighborhood, and the universal language was soccer. You know, so I'd play soccer with kids, and that was about the only time we were able to effectively communicate.
How did you hear about like the Art Institute from Boston?
We just started researching schools. I looked at a school called Ringling, which was like connected to the Ringling Brothers Circus. They're down in Sarasota, Florida. And then there was the Kansas City Art Institute, and then there was also Cal Arts. I was interested in being an animator. I was a big Disney fan and a big animation fan in general, like all the old Warner Brothers stuff.
Yeah.
And there was a connection with the Art Institute because, you know, Walt Disney had been there for a minute and also got his start there. And I was really romantic about, you know, like all of that, like early history. If, you know, if somebody like that could start there, then maybe it'd be a good school for me.
Man, that's sick, man.
Yeah. Out of all those places, man, that you've been, and you were at a younger age.
I was,
obviously, right? Have you ever gone back to any of them places too much?
I was in Israel last August.
Is that right?
Yeah, we did a bucket list trip. It was kind of crazy because, you know, it's since popped off there, and a lot of stuff is, you know, there's a lot of struggle going on over there between all the cultures and people dealing with you know, a lot of heartache over there. We went there as a family because it was something that my mom and dad wanted to show the grandkids.
Oh wow.
And we were trying to do it over COVID killed all of that, and we had to, like, you know, hit the reset button and then wait for everybody to save money again. And then we got that trip together, and when we got there were some people like protesting at the airport about something, but there's always a little bit of something going on there.
That's always kind of sketchy, brother. You know, when you go to some different countries, you never know what the hell is really kind of going on. Yeah,
and my wife's mom, you know, she was tripping on that a little bit. When I grew up there, Arafat was with the PLO, and that was when he was at his height of activism and stuff. And so part of the reason why we left was, you know, there was some violence and stuff that were happening in the inside of Jerusalem. And to be honest, like, I mean, towards the end, like, there was a machine gun fight on top of my school.
Oh, shit, man.
And,
damn, how old were you then?
That would be 4th, 5th grade.
Ooh, you were young.
You know, so people
9-10 years old, somewhere in there.
Yeah, people were jumping under, you know, like desks and stuff, and the school got shot up, and I think that was probably one of the last things. I don't know exactly what was on my mom and dad's mind, but my guess is the violence that close to the school and stuff was enough. So
man, for sure.
I mean, look, you made it. You're here, right? You're in Kansas City. So, I mean, you know, you talked about that, Scribe. I mean, so you go to the Art Institute, and we've asked, you know, we've talked to a number of people who went to the Kansas City Art Institute. We're going to eventually get somebody from the KC Art Institute
we're going to get one of those
show.
President here.
But you submitted a portfolio. Like, what did you do to get into the school, man?
Same thing as everybody else. Like, I submitted what I would consider a bad portfolio. They had a list of things you were supposed to draw that kind of like pushed you in directions that to get you out of your comfort zone. And then you also sent some things in that were, you know, like uniquely you. And so the combination of those two things is what you sent in. And, you know, I was lucky enough to be chosen.
So when you come here to Kansas City, I mean, that's in the early 90s, like you said, right? 93?
1993.
93. That was a great year, D-Rod.
It was.
I mean, 93 was a great year.
93 till infinity.
Let's go. I'm down with that. 93. So you come here in 93, man. You start going to the school. did you know anybody coming here in the Art Institute, or did you make friends real fast? What'd that look like?
It was kind of a rocky start at the beginning, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of kids feeling each other out.
Yeah.
I had a.
Is it a lot of out-of-towners?
It is.
It is?
Yeah. And so everybody's trying to get used to each other in the dorms. And I was walking through campus, and this random girl walks up to me, and she goes, "Do you do graffiti?"
Ooh.
And, I don't know what I was wearing or if it was obvious. It was probably baggy jeans or something.
Spray paint on your toes.
Honestly, there wasn't a lot of people wearing like hip hop stuff at the Art Institute. It was kind of a different time there.
Yeah.
So maybe I did look like out of place, but so I said, yeah, thinking that the conversation was going to go somewhere, and she just said, okay, and walked off, and I thought like, wow, that was strange.
Is this like when you're fresh in, or like?
Yeah, my first couple days.
So she didn't
No
like it?
way.
I didn't. Well, so it turns out she was dating Gear.
Oh.
She knew the look.
Okay.
Gear, I know you're watching this, bro.
man.
We know you sent her.
Yeah.
Don't lie, bro.
I'm not sure if she just knew the look and was
Yeah.
like instantly trying to find, like a friend for her boyfriend to play with.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to ask. Did you know him at that time or
No,
no?
I'd never heard of him.
Yeah.
Didn't know of him. And it turned out that he was a sophomore in the illustration department.
Okay.
And it took a day or two after that. And then I don't remember how, but I got an invite to go visit him. And I go into the art studios there, and they let the artist build these spaces. And he built walls and was spray painting on the inside of there, just driving everybody crazy.
No way.
And he was
Yeah.
doing characters.
Yeah.
From, I want to say like maybe Alice in Wonderland. It may have been
okay.
like something kind of weird.
Yeah.
And then we just started talking and like instantly hit it off. And
That was it.
I did not think, after leaving Boston, because that's where I originally got into graffiti and street art, I had come here with the mentality that I was putting that interest behind me.
Really? So you had already dove into kind of graffiti art back in Boston.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, there's a bunch of people that I had met some people in Kansas City. I had made some really terrible efforts at stuff, and and nobody would really, like, Boston was a much tighter, like, had a long history, because of New York and stuff like
it's
that.
East Coast,
East
man.
Coast.
Yeah, and so there was a totally different vibe for like letting people in, but I knew a strange amount because I could pick them out too, the same way that girl picked me out.
Oh, for real?
And so I would go up and talk to people, and a couple people responded, and my mom put me in an animation class, and I ended up sitting next to a guy named Bandit, who his crew was TFK, and we ended up kicking it off. So, when I got arrested, I made sure to remind my mom that she put me next to him.
Come on, Mom. Got to take some ownership there.
Hey, hanging out with a guy named Bandit, man. Things like that's gonna happen, right?
Exactly.
Of course, that probably wasn't his name in class, though.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
How was that scene there, man, in Boston when you're doing that? I mean, like we said, I'm sure the East Coast, man, it's all over the place. A lot of friends, a lot of crews.
Yeah, there was a lot, and I lived in the south end of Boston, which was like in the metro side of it.
Oh, okay.
It had a lot of history of writers and stuff, and there was a guy named Zone, a guy named Click, Rise, Alert. Like, I could go down a long list. And I just started exploring the neighborhood and doing walks away from, like, we lived in one of those like Cosby brownstone type things, and so I started walking around the neighborhood, and I'd find either handball courts or spots under bridges and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then fast forward, I ended up in one high school. It wasn't a good fit. I moved on to another one that had a supportive art teacher, and she gave me the first two like periods of school off to do art. And so I would just like roll up to the school, wave at her in the window and she would know that I was like going somewhere to sketch.
Yeah.
And like, you know, half the time I was sitting down and sketching, the other half I was on the train riding to different parts of the city that like my parents probably
You know,
like, yeah, exactly. Or I just didn't have the time because it was like I get out of school and they'd, you know, be like, you know, get your butt home and, you know, or something. And so now I had this like untethered, you know, access to be able to go around and basically do research and take photos and jump fences and stuff.
Right.
You son of a preacher, man.
Yeah.
You ain't going home talking about what you did all day.
Yeah. So I'm what they call a PK. So I guess I'm a typical preacher's kid where I'm
rebellious.
You keep contact with any of them old school people?
I do. There's a guy named Big that I used to talk to. I still talk to him on and off through
Shout out
through
Big, man.
Shout out, man.
BYG. And then there's another guy named Target who was a really great lettering guy.
Yeah.
And then there were people I looked up to who ended up coming into my life later through the Midwest, a guy named Emit. And there's also a really fantastic character guy named Sub, and they were in a crew called DF, and it was started in like the Connecticut area, but they would travel up into New York to go painting. I saw them in magazines and looked up to them. And when I moved to Kansas City and East ended up moving to Denver, it turned out that Emit lived in Denver. And within a week, I was on a bus.
No way.
Yeah, heading to Denver, up that direction I was like, I got to meet this guy. This is somebody I looked at in magazines.
Yeah.
Man, I could have been in one of them crews.
You could have, D-Rod. D-Rod sent me a photo, man, of some work he's working on. I ain't gonna. Hey, it's pretty dope.
We would have put you down.
I know, man. I'm sure.
I would have loved to seen.
I know.
Actually, I had seen your art before.
The crazy thing is, and I'll keep it real brief. You know, talking to people like yourself and Gear and you know, the It Road guys, man, it just makes me think like, man, let me get back in here. Let's try to mess around a little bit. But anyways, man.
You know what? I tell anybody that like it's the same thing in regards to drawing and stuff. Like people always tell you, like, you know, I used to do this back in the day. There's no timeline on that stuff. You can pick it up whenever you want. You might get frustrated by it. I sent my dad he used to do art, way before I was even born, and he started showing some interest in stuff, and I sent him some art supplies and things to hook him up. And, to try to get.
He started getting down again.
He was trying to sketch. He sketched a little bit in Israel, but then he ended up hiring an artist. He had a project that he was working on, and he realized like, oh, it's been a minute since I've done that.
That's sick, man.
But
that's awesome.
He's
man.
a fantastic woodworker.
Oh yeah, well shit, that's art right there.
Yeah.
Period.
So he dove all in. I mean, he's the carpenter who follows a carpenter.
There you go. There we go.
That's great.
So Scribe, you come to Kansas City, man. You meet Gear. Gear's doing characters and stuff, right?
Yeah, it was the end of my life.
Into your life, man. So, talk about that, bro. Like, what did that look like, man? Was it an automatic click? You know, you like, hey, let's go do something out here in the city? What
it was. Like? You've met Gear.
Yeah.
So he's a charming guy and an inviting, and he loves meeting people. And it was easy. It was easy to be friends with him, and he has a real desire to share that culture, and that was really attractive to me because
for sure.
Even though Boston has a fantastic scene, I spent a lot of time having people kind of gatekeep and keep things away from me, and deservingly so. There was a lot of people getting popped there and getting in trouble, and so they didn't know who to trust. At the time, I didn't understand that whole part of it. But then when I met Gear and he was an open book and he was like, this is how you do it, these are the caps that you use, I was like, wow, what are the odds that this is where I'd end up learning was in the place that I thought that I wasn't going to see it again.
The caps, man, that's not too many people really know much about that.
Yeah, well, back then there wasn't even Like they didn't sell them. So,
yeah, you had to make do with what you had.
Yeah, you go to the auto parts store, the old Testers cans. Remember those like miniature Krylon cans? Like those had what they called softballs on them.
Right.
And so we would go get those caps from Hobby Lobbies or whatever off of those, and then there were like other caps that you could get off of like oven cleaners and weird stuff like that would be fat caps and stuff.
Was Scribe though? Like, was that your name from the get? I mean, is that you carried that from Boston? How'd you come up with that name?
My first name was I don't think I've ever told this in an interview, but my first name was 2DP, and it meant two-dimensional piece, like piece, not painting a piece.
The number 2, the letter D, and P.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was trying to keep it short. I saw how a lot of graffiti was putting numbers and things in there, and so and I was trying to think of something that was a descriptor. I wanted to draw peaceful images, and it was two-dimensional, and so on. And so I thought I was being clever. After a while, that wasn't working, and I ended up picking Scribe, probably because of my, religious background. So scribes are mentioned in there, not necessarily in a positive light,
right?
But the way that I saw it was, there was somebody that wrote everything, a scribe, and so, hieroglyphics, those were scribes that were making pictures and stuff, and I was always really into storytelling, and I saw stories behind every picture I was making, so that made sense to me.
Okay.
And then when I moved here and I got involved in the scene here, I thought I was learning a lot more about hip hop, and I changed it to SKRYBE because it was more hip hop.
Or change it all up.
And then after a while, I just got tired of people they were trying to pronounce it like it was some weird Arabic name or something. They were trying to make it into something.
Script.
And so, and then after I'd gotten in trouble for graffiti, it was the name was on me, but I took it back to a traditional spelling.
Yeah,
nice.
I ain't gonna lie though, D-Rod, man. In my other life, it's like every time they're like, "Hey, who wants to Scribe the next meeting?" I'm always thinking of our guy right here, Scribe. I'm like, man, Scribe, man. Man, awesome fucking name, bro.
Yeah, man, no
awesome
doubt. What I wanted to ask too is, since when you start linking up with gear, and then was that the start of your crew and getting other guys here?
So East was already here.
Right.
He had maybe shown up a couple years prior to me getting here. I don't know that exact timeline, but I think that's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
And they were already painting together, and Cry was active.
Yeah.
There was another guy named Anti who was at the Art Institute, who was also a Chicago-based guy who was friends with friends with East.
Okay.
And so I think that's what brought East to Kansas City, was that one of them was attending the Art Institute.
Gotcha.
So he kind of fell off. He kind of fell off of doing graffiti and just went straight into the art game stuff. And East, Gear and East and Cry started Kansas City.
Yeah, man.
In comparison to Boston, right? When that's kind of where you started, right? In comparison to that, what was them crews like? I mean, was there a lot of rivalry? Was there a bunch of shit happening, where people want to jack and fuck up your work and everything?
Here in Kansas City?
In Boston or?
In Boston.
Or here?
Yeah, in Boston.
In that time, right?
Yeah, in Boston, there was a lot of politics going on between writers, but like I said, I wasn't allowed to get involved in it on a crew level, although I was meeting people. And then you hear rumors through the grapevine, the way that kids are hearing rumors nowadays. And so that's never changed. And then when I got here, this was literally the Wild West.
Right.
So there wasn't crews to beef with.
Oh, gotcha.
And so, there was a crew.
Right.
Yeah.
The Gear talked about that, right? I mean, he talked about he kind of helped start the scene, and then here comes Scribe, Cry.
Yeah.
There's a reason why you four names stick out to people who grew up here in the early '90s.
Yeah. Well, he did a fantastic job of telling the history and honoring people that had painted on walls and stuff like that. that for that, like what you would call, you know, like East Coast, New York style graffiti and stuff. Yeah. If you're going to talk about like starting the scene, you know, it's going to be gear. You know, it doesn't mean it was the first piece of graffiti that was placed on the wall, because that's always debatable. Nobody knows every corner and crevice of the city. Yeah. But when you talk about the lifestyle and actively, consistently doing graffiti for the, you know, in air quotes, the culture, right? Then I would gear's the man.
So I mean, for you though, Scribe, was it like one of those things where characters was always you, like you? Because I mean, I'm looking around this room right now, right, and all your pieces, man, you just have character after character. Was that always something that
It always was. Like, for me, I've been a cartoonist since I was a kid. When I was living in Israel, my grandma sent me the old school, like, long, skinny Garfield books. And I would copy Jim Davis's artwork, and I was into Bloom County and all these other cartoons and stuff. But I started getting into graffiti in Boston because the scale was what fascinated me first, honestly. Yeah. And so I started getting out, and I would just stand in front of stuff and look at the wall. And even though I was admiring the lettering, there was some other character dudes in Boston, and this guy Resent and a couple other ones who didn't have a long lifespan. But just the idea of it, a cartoon being out in public, really fascinated me. And then when I got here, it gave me the chance to do it. Yeah, I owe all my education, since I didn't get to finish at the Art Institute. I owe all my education to lettering people, you know, my color theory and all kinds of stuff. So I consider that to be my teachers and stuff. And I try to do letters sometimes, but you know, when you paint around gear and East, it's kind of hard to do that stuff. And I fell into being the character guy. I think he may have mentioned it or has mentioned it in another one, like, you know, like a lot of crews need a character guy, and I fell into that slot, and then all of a sudden, like, the crew was a little bit more complete.
I mean, look, man, your characters, like, I feel like when I walk around the city or drive around the city, D-Rod, and I guarantee you there's people watching this that are like, yep, this is true. You know a Scribe character automatically.
Well, it's right there on the table, man. Let's talk about that, right? That's Rumpus.
Yeah.
Rumpus, man. And is he like one of your original?
He's a really old character, you know, like, don't want to go like too far into the story, but like, you know, I when I was at the Art Institute in '93, they asked me not to return at the end of '94. Okay. Really? That year. It's a long story. They were not into graffiti. They were not supportive. Right. And I can say that the administration at that time told me to my face that what I did was not art.
Oh, wow.
And that's why, like, when Juan was talking about, like, how the guy told him to leave, and he used
about tattooing?
Yeah, he used that as fuel.
Right.
And that's exactly what I did. Was when I left, when somebody told me that I can't do something or it wasn't art, that's exactly why all those murals popped up in Westport, was because I wanted every teacher to drive by them.
They check this shit out.
I hope they're still alive, and I hope they've had to see your work.
They had, and I'm sure they've changed their whole.
Some of them, you know, some of them are just, you know, some people. It's okay. You know, at the time I was much more upset about it. Right. But some of them have seen it differently because they were in the middle of a change and a growth in like the art world and street art and stuff like that being more accepted. And, you know, like they were right in the middle of it and didn't know how to process it. And some of them have decided that they don't like it to this day. And that's everybody's right to decide whether they like or don't like it. But they didn't need to, you know, like the guy, like Juan said, they didn't need to be rude about it. And that actually broke my heart. And so that's actually what led to Rumpus. Was I went into depression after I, you know, didn't get to return. And I started focusing on like what were the things that made me happy about doing art.
Yeah.
And when I was in Israel, one of the things that I would always do is I would draw fish when I would go out to the Mediterranean Sea. And then there's a lot of different crazy animals out that way. And I would draw a lot of animals. So I thought I need to recapture my happiness. And I'm going to go back to drawing some of the original things that made me happy as a kid, like just literally art therapy. And I grabbed a book and I said, I'm going to pick an animal. And I opened the book and there was this rhino. And I look at it and I start reading up on it. And their vision is blurry. They can't see in a distance.
Of rhinos.
Yeah. They're big. They're solitary.
Right.
And they can't see far. And so instantly I was like, I'm big. I was spending a lot of time alone. And at the time, I had no idea what my future was going to be like anymore because school had been taken away from me.
Did you stay in Kansas City after that, Scribe, or did you go back to Boston, or what did that look like?
I stayed. And the reason why I stayed was because of my wife. I met my wife in 93. We've been together 31 years now.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Congrats.
Yeah. I probably more than anything say that I came here to meet her. I didn't came here to go to school.
Yeah. What's her name?
So Elisa.
Shout out, Elisa. Shout out.
She's been the most consistent, supportive person in my entire life.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yep.
So you start drawing Rumpus, right?
He didn't have a name at the time.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's. I mean, what's the evolution of that, man? So
I started drawing rhinos, and then I watched a documentary on bees, and it was about them being assigned a job, and they had to. In fact, there ended up being a bee movie, and I had already done this concept, and that's what my bees and stuff were about. Yeah. So when the bee movie came out, I was kind of like, "Oh, Seinfeld." But
bees are phenomenal, man. I love bees, man.
So at the time, because I was upset, I saw it differently. I saw an animal who, kind of like in the bee movie, was being forced to do a job that it didn't want to do.
Gotcha.
And so I started seeing the world around me as bees and then myself as a rhino. And then I started doing all these paintings of bees attacking rhinos, trying to get them to become one of the hive.
wow.
And they were constantly trying to steal his horn, and the horn was his imagination. And so I went through a lot of stuff that people don't know about that, like slept in, I was homeless for a minute and had all kinds of interesting things happen in my life.
This is in 94?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that year in particular was rough.
Yeah.
I'd got in trouble, and went through the system and everything like that. And that's what led to Big Dude's music. So somebody found me because I was on the news.
Oh, wow.
I was on the news for getting in trouble, not on the news for doing artwork.
I want to hit on that story, but before we get there, man. So have you ever seen the movie? I wrote it down. One Crazy Summer.
Yes, I have.
Man, so John Cusack plays a character, right? Yep. I think what's his name in there? Hoops, I think.
Yes.
Okay, so he plays a character named Hoops, and this is One Crazy Summer.
Who's terrible at basketball?
He's terrible at basketball. He's not good with girls, right? There's all these things. But he draws. He's like he draws characters, and the character that he draws the most is a rhino.
It is. Yeah.
I mean, it's not this dope ass rhino we're looking at right now. It's kind of a heavy set, overweight rhino.
But it's great though.
Man, it is, man. I got to be honest, Scribe. Like, I automatically think about that. Like when I see you with the rhino, I think about that rhino as well.
I didn't come into the rhino thing because of that movie, but by the time, when I went through the 90s and then I didn't really have material things, like I didn't have access to TV and stuff for a long time because I was broke.
The struggle.
And so when I finally was in some random place and watched that movie, I just was like mind blown because this guy was animating something, and he was animating his personal story through the rhino. I was like, wow, what a crazy coincidence.
Yeah, it's just like You.
Yeah.
exactly what you
And so
did.
I started drawing the Rhino. And at first, the bees were antagonistic. You'd see a lot of old ones where the bees were angry
Mean,
and chasing him and stuff. And
Are you talking about pieces that you did out in public? that were
yeah,
like that?
some of them like down in the Westport area, back when that club EXO was
in
over
the alley.
there, and we would paint back in the alleyway, and they were almost always angry. And I think I carried a lot of guilt for going down a path because my original dream was to do kids art, animate and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I did not want to I felt like I had screwed up an opportunity, or I was on the edge of losing my opportunity to do what I loved for the rest of my life.
Because
And-
getting in trouble and all this other shit. Right?
Yeah, and then I was getting jobs that that like all of us have to do to pay bills, and I was doing stuff I hated every day.
Right.
And to me, every day it felt like somebody that I was working for was trying to turn me into a bee.
Right.
And every lunch break, I sat down and I drew in my sketchbook and got made fun of at jobs. I worked at a candle factory, sign shops, and they would tease me. They're like, every lunch break, like
Drawing bees.
you're all just sitting there drawing anything, all the time. And I was like, because I don't want to be here. Like I just want. I'm drawing every day for freedom. And I didn't know what that was going to be, but I just knew that I had to stay in motion.
Well, I mean, you kind of said it. You said it earlier, though, right? I mean, you said that, when you were out, in Israel, you would go to the river there, and you would draw the animals, right? And then when all that happened to you here again, basically kicked out. I'll use that term, kicked out at KC Art Institute. You went right to drawing characters again. Drawing a character and drawing animals. So it makes sense when you're in this place where you don't want to be. That's what you're doing. You're drawing characters.
I didn't realize it, but I was doing art therapy.
Right.
And then you're going to find out like why art therapy is a big deal to me. When we get into talking about children's mercy, there's an interesting like closing moment of all of that. But to me, the Rhino, like later on, he got the name Rumpus. It represents me. It represents artists and creatives that are struggling every day to do something that they believe in and dream in. Rumpus is not just me, even though it started out as me. It started out as my art therapy, and then it developed into something bigger. And it was like I see him as like the embodied creative spirit.
Yeah.
And the bees also, like, I even saw my friends who were wanting to party and do stuff. Like I had an apartment just full of like 100 paintings in there. I had no furniture. It was just paintings all over the place. Yeah. And people thought I was nuts because they would say like, hey, let's go out and kick it. Let's do this. And I think I was carrying this guilt about what happened to me and disappointing my parents and stuff. And I was like, I got to regain ground. Yeah. And so even when I was drawing the bees, I was even drawing some of my friends who were encouraging me to do anything but
what you wanted
work
to do
towards my dream.
Right.
So sometimes, they didn't know it, but the bees that were attacking the Rhino were unknowingly my friends. Yeah. As I matured and saw over time, they just wanted to hang out. Yeah. They just wanted to have fellowship. Some of them, not every friend has your best interest at heart,
sure.
But there's a lot of them that just want to kick it. Yeah. And so the bees I started doing like half happy, half mad. Yeah. And then it became, like they kind of went away, and the bees just started becoming characters. And then I learned about their importance to the earth and the importance. And interestingly enough, like since I was seeing bees as humans, like how important humans, different humans' abilities and stuff are important in their own way too. Right, so the bees transitioned as part of that therapy out of like anger. They just became, when you see bees on my murals, it's just various characters of the human race that sometimes I'm encountering while I'm out on the street painting.
Right, man. And you know, to me, what I'm hearing also is that there was some mental health issues.
Yeah,
you know
absolutely.
what I mean? And which, yeah, man, thank you very much for sharing that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty personal, pretty deep. And, you know, we've talked to many people
a lot of people
that have gone through things like that, and you coming out on the other side of it.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, just representing that for other artists and for other people. I mean, in general, you know, I mean, that go through that, you know, and man, thanks a lot for that. Do the bees have a name?
No, they're just all
Bees,
just all
man.
angry and happy bees.
Yeah,
man.
there's bees in here right now that
Yeah.
are some of Eric Berry's family members. I'm looking at his Uncle Nard right now. I think his dad is up there with the gray goatee and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And my friend Emily, who manages this space, she's around the corner. And so sometimes I
You
do
know
that.
you know what I like to do? Man, Scribe, I like you to make a D-Rod and JLB, man.
I got
How
you,
about
man.
that,
I'll
bro?
do it. I got you, man.
Put us up on the next one, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can do
man.
that. I
I
promise
got an
that'll happen.
idea, man. I got something for you, man.
I wanted to say, Scribe, man, and D-Rod, really, I mean, man, when I hear you talk about that whole journey, just physically, mentally, emotionally,
Yeah.
spiritually, right, that you went through, man, you know what that is, D-Rod?
Oh, man.
Man, that
Tell
is
me.
a salute,
That
man,
is a
to
salute,
you,
man.
Scribe,
Yeah.
man.
Salute, cheers to you,
seriously,
man.
cheers.
You know,
And for people that don't know, we are actually drinking Scribe's first batch of rum.
Yeah.
yeah,
With
man.
what is it, ginger beer?
We're drinking it with ginger beer, and I used to keep honeybees, and my honeybees moved down to my neighbor's house, and he hooked me up with some of that honey, and so you're drinking
This is fire, man.
you're drinking
This is-
homemade rum with Westport honey.
This is incredible, man. This is really good. Do you have a name for it yet, or is Scribe?
Oh, it's just bee venom.
Bee venom.
Bee venom. That's the
That'll
name.
do.
That's the name of your rub.
Yeah.
I love it, man. I love it.
We've
Yeah.
D-Rod and I have drank everything from whatever to bee venom. You know?
There's a picture of us with the glass or whatever. man.
my
I have to show you, man. It's hilarious.
Oh, it's embarrassing. But so, man, you were getting ready to hit on all that, man. You end up on the news. So talk about that. So how did you get busted, like, to be on the news? Do you remember that?
You want to tell a story?
Yeah, that's a long story. I would rather, if we only have so much time, I'd rather talk about some of the other cool
Okay.
stuff.
Nah, cool.
No, it's
Yeah.
cool, but I just know that, like, I mean,
Was it doing graffiti?
yes.
Okay.
And the Art Institute played a role in that.
Okay,
and
cool.
so if you dig around on the internet, you can find the story.
Yeah.
It's not terribly difficult, but I try not to shine too much light on that. It is something that I transitioned out of, but
Right.
but I'll be honest, it's something that I still get judged for.
Sure.
And so it's a difficult story for
Even
me to
after
tell.
all these years.
Yes.
Wow.
It's hard to work. Sometimes it can be hard to work in the professional world because they don't see it as a traditional path. And there are people that only think that the traditional path is what equals excellence. And
Tell
that's
me
just
about
not-
it, brother. I can go, we can go all day on that.
Yeah. And so sometimes I know that, like, people are kind of confused by why I can be so pro graffiti as, like, my educational background, and why I'm so dedicated to my wife. And that's because those times were some of the hardest times in my life for a couple reasons, because I felt like I had failed myself and my family and what they expected out of me. It totally threw me off track of what my original dreams are. But it was turned into something really powerful,
Man.
more powerful than I even was even thought possible.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly,
kind of
man.
what gets me to, like, believe in miracles.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about
Because,
them.
and that's, but, my teachers like East and Gear and Cry and Emit and Sub and so on, that became my college.
Yeah.
My parents were disappointed but supported me, which is rare, for some family life stuff. But then I also had Elisa, who, every time things got wild and I got down and my friends were not able to pick me
Yeah.
up, she was the one that always told me it was all right and to
No
keep
doubt,
going.
man. No doubt.
That's that backbone, man.
Yeah.
It's that
Amen.
backbone.
Yeah.
So you were talking about big dudes. I mean, for people who don't know where that is,
Yeah.
I mean, that's 39th and Broadway is pretty
Iconic,
much,
man.
right, man?
Yep.
Iconic. OAARP used to be right next to it.
Yep.
Now it's a Walgreens.
Yep.
So they see you on the news. What happened?
They found my probation officer, and that was how I got the job. So I got, 3.5 years probation, thousands of dollars worth of fines,
Right.
and I had to pay off the fines somehow, and I had to pay court costs, and I was broke, and borderline, didn't have a place to live. My probation officer brokered a deal where I did, ironically, 4 paintings for the city, and traded part of my fine for those 4 paintings. And every month I got to go in and check in with my probation officer and look at 4 paintings in the waiting room, which is kind of funny because it was this waiting room before, you went and did whatever.
Yeah.
And waiting rooms ends up becoming this interesting theme throughout a ton of my life after that for in the medical field and stuff. But I did a story about the mouse that pulls the thorn out of the lion's paw. It's like a trust story.
Okay.
And so I felt like it was appropriate because that was the kind of relationships that were going on between people that were on probation. Some of them don't want to be there. They're not interested. Other people are looking to rebuild. And so that I did that story.
That's
Man,
cool,
that's pretty badass though, man, for a PO to
Man.
work out that type of deal.
Yeah.
She or he, she must have had some
Yeah.
some type of pull, bro, to do that.
Yeah, she had a lot of pull. I mean, Gear liked going to probation with me because she was cute.
What's her name? What's her name?
Come on,
You
Gear.
remember her name?
It's been, honestly, it's been a minute.
I had a cute
Nah,
probation
it's all-
officer
it's all
once
good.
too.
She
man.
was chill, and like without going all the way down the like hip hop rabbit hole here in Kansas City, we used to do these big flavor pack parties and with DJs and stuff.
Right.
She would roll up,
Really?
and she would be chilling out there with all of us in her, and she was like wearing roller skates and would be rolling around the party.
Man, my PO, she was,
Gear rolling right next to her. What's up, girl?
my PO was fine as hell, but she was a bitch, man. She wasn't nice at all, man. She hated me, man.
Mine was really nice, and then towards the end, she ended up moving on, and I think my last like 3 or 4 months were kind of rough because it was
Somebody
I
else.
got really spoiled
Yeah.
and didn't realize that I had somebody that was so out of character for that field. So that
Shout
was
out
like
to her, man.
Yeah. She actually got tattooed recently. I think she moved out east, but I bumped into her in Quick Trip.
Really? Wow.
Like years later, and she was interested in doing art therapy.
Wow.
So there's this art therapy thing
she
pops
had-
up a bunch of times.
She had some interest already. That's why.
She
man.
did, and so she saw an opportunity, and she pushed it without me knowing. Nobody was calling it that.
Yeah, that's great.
And then she told me years later that relationship that we ended up having, and her seeing what I was doing, and by this point we did Big Dudes, and we got on the news, and then I did Gear and I did Zowie, and then we did the right after Zowie was the karate AKK, a karate place across the
Dragon?
street. Yeah, and we were lucky to be getting on the news for these things because it was weird, for Kansas City. And she told me, she was like, that encouraged me to go back to what I originally wanted to do.
Wow.
And so
awesome,
that's why she left, was to get back. Yeah, I don't know if that's what she's doing now, but
You inspired her, man.
our relationship inspired her to go back to her original, I guess.
Passion.
Yes.
The one thing I do remember Gear talking about is you guys was getting like tomatoes and shit thrown at you when you was doing the big dudes. You remember that?
He's not lying. So they were preaching something called the broken window theory at that time. And that came from I think it was the West Coast.
Yeah.
And there's some truth in there, and there was also a lot of exaggeration and misuse of that stuff.
Yeah.
And so people in Kansas City, when they were seeing it publicly, automatically associated it with gang stuff.
Yeah.
Just vandalism and
yeah.
everything else in that time frame.
So nobody had seen 2 people standing on Broadway, doing, graffiti or mural, with spray cans live in your face on one of the two main streets in Kansas City. And so, yes, like people were driving by us, flipping us off, cussing us out. And one dude like threw his whole hamburger and drink at us, what
an idiot.
And so, but fast forward, I forgot how many years that wall was there for. Like
it was there
17,
for a long
20 years.
It was there for a
Crazy.
while.
I grew up right down the street from there, man, and I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was when they removed it, which I was happy to see it go.
Why?
I just,
Because it was old, faded.
Yeah. It was just, it's like artists.
It was like you see an old classic car in the fields, and like, man, it was nice at one time.
Yeah.
And it's just gone, right?
And, the sun had beat it down. I love the memory.
Oh, yeah.
And, I could tell funny stories, and there was so many funny things that happened during that time. And Gear and I lived over by the Art Institute, which I would, 43rd and Walnut would be where I describe the area that we were in. That kind of near that Quick Trip over on Main Street.
Yep.
Right behind it.
We didn't have a car, and so we filled entire army bags all the way to the top full of spray paint and gallons of paint, and we each had one on our back. I drew a drawing of me and him doing this, and then we had a 20-foot extension ladder, and he was way at the front and I was way at the back, and we walked it all the way to Big Dudes, and we would paint, and then we'd walk all that stuff all the way back. And that's also how we did Zowie and all of those. Like, we had no car, and so that's
you
why
got any pictures of that?
Not us walking. I mean, like, you're talking like this is back when you had to do film. So if you could develop film, you were rich. Which is why I got a job at Wolf Photo eventually.
Over on Westport Road?
Yeah, I worked at the one right by Ace Hardware.
That little Coist or that little building that's like a coffee shop now or something. Yeah, man. I used to go there all the time.
Oh, yeah, man. I learned so much about my neighborhood working in there. I saw every party and everything.
See me going in there, man.
Oh man, I saw so many like people naked.
I need you probably seen me in there because I'm very developed.
Yeah, I didn't want to say anything, but
I mean, the crazy thing about it though, Scribe, is that, I mean, you think back. So was Big Dudes your first hired professional mural that you did?
it was here in Kansas City.
In Kansas City.
So another strange loop story was I was given the opportunity in the Boston area. I think it was my senior year, and it was at a hospital.
Oh, okay.
And I had not had the chance to slow down and really do spray paint. And it was outside, and it was on a cancer wing up on a rooftop. Okay. And so I convinced my parents to, I was like, oh, I need spray paint in order to do this. When it was really self-serving. It was like, I want to see what this is like. So my first experience with spray paint was ironically doing art for a cancer wing right outside of Boston.
Wow.
Yeah.
And trying to do something that helped people's lives when they looked out the window.
I guess where I was going with that is, that's badass, man. Mm-hmm. You were doing that in high school, right? Yeah. Here in Kansas City, though, like you said, there was no graffiti scene yet. And then here you guys come, Gary, you, and you start creating, you didn't know at the time, you were creating a whole scene.
Yeah.
So you showed up here in 93. What year was Big Dudes?
That may have been summer 94 or fall 94, okay. Somewhere around there.
I was just asking because now you fast forward 30 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How many murals have you done, man, in Kansas City?
Oh, man.
It's so many.
Really, I don't know.
It's a lot, right?
Yeah. In Children's Mercy alone, there's hundreds.
Yeah.
Hundreds, yeah.
And so,
Which is for those people, like I said, those that have been there and that don't know the artists, right? Everybody has kids and they all get sick and they've all been there. I've been there many times, right?
Yeah. Right.
So with that, man, the ones in Children's Mercy, Describe how that happened, bro.
Yeah.
Man, how did that go from...
I worked in the sign industry with gear. That was kind of a natural segue for us. We were found by a couple sign business owners because they knew us as doing, I think their son was a fan of our graffiti at the time.
Oh, okay.
And at that time, that was kind of trippy because we had not really thought about people following our work. This is probably...
Or even wanting it to any other type of level, but more than what you were doing, right?
Yeah, or that it would get us a job somewhere. Like it gave us credibility, which was kind of a foreign thought to us. But it did. And then I was doing installations at at Children's Mercy. I was making signs for Children's Mercy.
For the company you work for. Okay.
And then there was a project manager named Carl Palermo, who I owe my life to this guy. He had a smart mouth on him. You'd have to know him. He'd be up there cussing and just saying wild things. And one day he popped off to me because we had paint all over our clothes. And he said, when you come in the hospital, you could at least tuck your shirt in and look a little nicer. And I just turned around and said, well, when you get some better murals, I'll tuck my shirt in. And we just had that.
What did they have there at that time? Do you remember?
There was one mural that I can recall.
Something like a train or something.
There was one in the ER. I can barely remember it.
I'm sure it wasn't nothing.
No, and there was no color. The whole hospital was tan.
Yeah.
And
I remember.
70s tan.
Yeah.
And he jokingly said, well, send me give me a portfolio. He tried to punk me out. And I was I don't think you know me. When you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to annoy you. And so fast forward a couple more years, there was a point where I remembered that. I didn't follow through right away. But then when my wife and I got married, we got married about 8 years after dating or something. And then we knew we were going to have a kid.
Right.
I was like, I need a big boy job and I need insurance to protect my family. And first I tried to get a job at Hallmark.
Right.
And the guy that interviewed me was a fan. He had pictures of Big Dude's music on the wall in there. So,
is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I sit at the desk and I look at the wall and there's a couple pictures there and I go, in my head, I'm like, yes,
got it.
but I didn't have a degree.
Wow.
And so he said, I'm sorry, man, I'm a fan, but I can't hire you because you don't have a degree from an art school, which was weird.
Yeah.
To be on the wall of somebody that was in that position of power.
Right, you should have pointed at the picture. Look, man, that's my degree right there.
Yeah, he knew.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But
I'm sure he did.
But it was out of his hands. And so then I remember Carl at the hospital, and I went to him and I just said, I'll do anything. I'll be a maintenance painter. I don't want to work in the sign industry anymore. And same thing, it's either painting walls or hanging signs. It's the same kind of money, same kind of, labor job. And he said, let me see what I can do. And not that long after that, he called me up and was like, I brought my portfolio with me. And he goes, well, I don't think they're going to be interested in hiring an artist. I can never convince them to make a position for an artist. The hospital was not progressive that way at the time.
Right.
And he said, but I feel like we're going to get you in here and something's going to happen. And he was
right.
He was totally right, because within a year, I did a little bit of maintenance work, and my thing was I just went there to serve.
Right.
I went there to, I was excited about where I worked because it was connected to kids and what they were doing. I knew that maybe I had faith that something was going to pop up.
Right.
And then one day they were like, hey, let's do a mural outside of the ER, which gave me the chance to spray paint. And I painted a mural outside. It only took me 3 days, which blew their mind because they had people do stuff in the past and it just dragged on forever. Right. And then the CEO of the hospital was like, where did that come from? Who did that? And they said, he's in the maintenance department. And then all of a sudden I started getting asked to do more and more.
Did they ask you like for you to just freestyle it, like come up with something that, or did they tell you like what they wanted?
No, they drew a sketch. That was the thing that was cool about Carl, was he was like an artist himself, and so he understood that. But he also knew that like if I got into that life there, that there's a lot of like nurses and managers and people that are going to want to have input down the road. But my first mural there, it was like, well, what do you want? What do you think we should do? And that part of the hospital was called the Wild Kingdom. They had like made it into 4 sections. And so the Wild Kingdom had elephants and giraffes on the signage. Yeah. So I painted a bunch of elephants out, like looking at butterflies and stuff like that in the jungle. And it just took off from there. Man. And then fast forward, it just started taking over my job. Yeah. And then fast forward, like at one point I was doing nothing but art for them and signage for them. Yeah. And then they came to me and said, we don't really feel like we are doing, like, you don't have the right position. You're listed as a maintenance painter, but this is not what you're doing here. Yeah,
they created a position for you.
And so but then they didn't know where to look. So there's nobody in the country had a full-time job doing art at a hospital.
Right.
So they said, we don't know where to look. And I said, well, you've got a whole creative agency across the street at Hallmark. So the company that had originally turned me down, I had recently done a job for them. And the lady was a huge fan, and so I got to do some side work for them, you know, as an artist, but not be hired on as an employee.
Yeah, of course.
And they filmed
triple charge.
They filmed me doing it, and then they hung the painting in Hallmark for a while, and that was super fresh. But the timing of it was just like almost divine, because when they came around and said it's time to change your job position, we don't know where to look and we don't understand what you do. I said, well, this lady does. She works at Hallmark. They called and she put a foot up their butt and was like, you have no idea who he is. And even then, most of the people there didn't know what I didn't talk about what Gear and I were doing.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't tell people I did big dudes. I just was kind of like, I'm in dad mode, you know? And it just, they like everything changed from there. And so Carl, I mean, props to Carl Palermo, because he saw a void. He doesn't believe in like traditional paths and stuff like that. Yeah. And he saw an opportunity. And honestly, together and with the whole facilities department, like all these like really dope, carpenters that I worked with, and engineers and electricians, like we made so many crazy things there that people have no idea. If you don't have a kid, you don't have a clue what's in that building.
Right. Is Carl still around?
He retired right before I parted from Children's Mercy.
Did you ever do some ambulance work, like wraps or anything?
Yeah, so I designed, that led into, I painted, I did their ambulances.
You did every ambulance, didn't you?
Yeah, I designed all the colors, and this is where I got to start putting like graffiti. If you start really looking at the designs behind the characters on every one of them, there's a graffiti flair.
Is it, this is still in the 90s though, right?
At this point, we're talking in like the 2000s is when the ambulances and stuff are coming about.
Yeah.
And then that led to, I painted 2 different helicopters for them, and a propeller airplane and a Learjet.
Holy shit, man!
That's fucking sick. You know what that is?
You know what that is,
man. That is a salute,
that is a big
man. Take a gold, man.
That jet, man. I seen a picture, and for all you people out here, man, in our audience, if you're interested in looking that, it's not too hard to find. Man, that jet that you painted was incredible. The helicopters are incredible. Everybody's seen ambulances, bro. Everybody has seen those ambulances.
Well, I asked because I'm old now too. I'm just like, I'm losing track of time. And I remember just driving down, it might have been the boulevard. I don't know where I was. I was in Kansas City. And all of a sudden I see this ambulance go by me, and I'm like,
it's a giant Hot Wheels car.
Is that? I recognize it automatically. I'm like, that's Scribe. Like Scribe is on an ambulance. Like honestly, it entered my head that way.
Yeah,
and it blew my mind. Cool. It blew my mind.
It was a real honor to be able to work with the transport team, and they trusted me to do that.
Yeah,
and.
Well, it brings everything to life, man.
It changes the experience of being transported.
Exactly, and that's what I was about to say. You take children, man, and they're scared.
Yep.
Yeah, they're scared. I mean, when they're going to the
especially
hospital,
going in an ambulance or
going to the
like
hospital,
that.
going to an ambulance, going whatever it may be, being ill, being sick, or being whatever it is, man. And I would only imagine which that has to affect them for the time being, like to make them feel a little bit better, man.
Well, so the transport staff at Children's Mercy, they transport kids that have been stabilized. So in a lot of situations, those kids are coherent and can see what's going on. They don't go to a crash site.
Right.
The city handles that. If they are taken to another hospital and then they need to go to Mercy, Mercy picks them up. If they need to go to Boston Children's for a special surgery, they hook them up, and in many cases I think they're taking them for free.
Wow.
So the reason why I bring that up is because kids are dealing with anxiety, and you imagine leaving the building and going to another place that you don't know.
That you don't want to go to.
You come outside and that vehicle says, "I'm here for you."
Yeah.
Man.
A little bit more welcoming.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man, so that's here in KC. You said something about going somewhere else. What other cities have you done that to? Any other hospitals?
Yeah, because you do a lot of hospital work everywhere now.
So I've recently ventured out. I've started a business called Scribbleverse Studios.
Okay.
It's scribbleversestudios.com if you want to see some of my hospital work, which is probably. It is the stuff that I'm the most proud of because I like how it touches people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
But I designed an entire hospital in Tulsa. It's called St. Francis Children's Hospital, which was another crazy thing because my family started in Tulsa, and then to get reached out to by a children's hospital in the place that most of my family originates from is just really strange circles, but so that's been the last year and a half has been me working on that, just going floor by floor. And if there's a on Instagram, it's at Scribbleverse Studios. You can see a lot of the progress of that project, and I haven't even posted it all yet.
Yeah.
But
you said on IG is Scribbleverse
Studios.
Studios.
Yep.
I'll throw it on here, man.
Yeah,
appreciate
man.
it.
What are you? I mean, you said you did 100 murals and 100 or plus in Children's Mercy. Probably more than that. Well, in Kansas City, just on walls, right, man?
Yeah.
Is there one that really sticks out in your head in Kansas City that you would say, man, that's one I'm just really proud of?
There's a couple different ones for different reasons. I really like the catfish on Evolution Audio, which is basically on 39th and Pennsylvania, in between Broadway and Pennsylvania when you're going towards KU. That was a turning point for me. I just did all of that one by myself. That giant catfish, that's our state fish. That's a channel catfish. Rumpus is riding inside of it. And all of the controls are things from an old school, traditional recording studio. I don't really like doing advertisements that are direct. And I try to steer away from having clients that way. I want clients that want to do artwork that I don't believe in beating people over the head. So I've always fancied my murals around the city as a break from advertising. That's been a thing. There was so many billboards selling kids on garbage all the time, and I took a lot of pride in putting murals in different parts of the city so that they had something else to look at.
Right.
But that was a big one, and the Love Kansas City one down on the Boulevard has really touched a lot of people.
Iconic, man. That's iconic.
That was one that when I finished it, like you don't usually think about it that way when you walk away, but when I finished it and there were no cars in there and I just looked at it, I was like, this is gonna hit.
Man.
And did it, boy.
I mean, every time I drive by that thing, man, there's somebody, Scribe, taking photos,
taking pictures,
making a video. I mean,
I've been told that it's probably the most photographed mural, but it's also, a different kind of access, and it's inviting to. I saw an entire spin class in there. Somebody sent me a video, and there was just all these ladies and dudes on stationary bikes, and the guy is like dancing up front. I was like, I've seen it all. I've seen girls in bikinis and motorcycles and rap videos,
man,
and
lowriders all the time.
Lowriders are in there, and like high school photos, and it's been beautiful to see people do that. And I waited a while. Like, I've lived in a lot of places around the world, and I didn't feel like I didn't decide to do that mural until I felt like I was from Kansas City. Mm. And so that decision, when I made that, I took the idea to Fox Equipment Company and said,
for real?
I want to do this. And I came up with all the stuff that's on the inside. Everything in it is me. People helped, because it was hard to find some of the history stuff. Jenny Mendez actually helped me
shout out Jenny.
And stuff. And but when I finished that one, like, that was partially me saying, like, I've lived here longer than any place. Yeah. I felt like I had made an impact on Kansas City with all the work at Children's Mercy and stuff, and I felt like I could finally say that I was a Kansas Cityan.
Mm-hmm. Well, what a great tribute, man, you created there, man, for everybody who has taken a picture there, and I mean, what a great piece you did.
I was gonna ask, man. So Fox, they pick it up, right? You go to them with the idea. Talk us through the mural, though. Like, it's Love Kansas City. Mm-hmm. I think that speaks for itself. Yeah. You don't really need to go into that. But man, when I go there, and I've gone there now multiple times, one with you, obviously. Yeah. There's a number of characters in there. Like, I mean, Primitivo Garcia's in there, D-Rod.
Yeah.
And Pendergast.
And Jenny gave me that one.
Yeah.
Because I was disappointed in the fact that when I was trying to find history and I wanted to provide some diversity, it was disheartening to not find, things that were related to other cultures, or I didn't know where to look.
Right.
And if I didn't know where to look, that meant that nobody was finding it because I was digging hard. So I called her and I found out some other things and had to dig for some of those people. And not everything on there, like, people love, but it's still part of a history. I had somebody write over the Walt Disney thing because, that could be a controversial figure. There's a lot of interesting myths around that guy or truths. I really don't know, and I don't want to comment on whether it's true or not. But he still made an impact, on the world. And one of the things that I always say is that, if I was ever blessed enough to do something that big and cool, and then I'd pass away and somebody turns the corporation into something yucky, it's out of my control.
Right,
and so holding the mouse accountable and holding him accountable, even though he wasn't a perfect man, I just don't personally believe that he was out to get anyone.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah.
So he was on there, but I did love Kansas City because there was a lot of people doing Kansas City love. Or just doing the Kansas City heart thing. And Kansas City went through this thing that was really beautiful to see so many people showing so much love for Kansas City.
Right.
It also got kind of crazy for a minute because it just felt like everybody was competing to sell it. And I was struggling with whether I was even going to do the mural or not, because I felt like we, as Kansas City, sometimes we get on something, we kind of overdo it. And we were on the cusp of overdoing it, and so I struggled with doing it, but then I decided, probably like everybody else, I was like, I'm gonna do it my own way, and and get it out there. But I just tried to do it as authentically as possible. And it wasn't about advertising Kansas City love. It was about reminding people to love Kansas City.
Right.
And to love like the good and the bad, that goes with it.
Right.
For sure.
I think it's sick, man. I mean, especially the fact that, because then you mentioned when we were out there that somebody wrote over, was it Walt Disney they wrote over? And then you had to redo a character?
I had to fix Walt Disney, and then the other one was the Scout. So there's that sculpture of them. I did that entire mural in yellows, reds, and blues. I'm not really sure why I landed on that. I don't remember how I got to that point. And then I chose color tones for the different groups of letters. That forced you, in order for contrast, to like choose colors. So I did the Scout in red tones.
Oh, okay.
And so since it is a Native American, that hit somebody like really hard. And, like I had already shown it to some friends who were on a tribal council and said, like, I did the right thing. I showed it to people and was not given credit for doing the right thing. I've been lucky to go up to the Cheyenne River in South Dakota and work on the reservation up there and work with kids from that community. And so I had people that I could reach out to that were trusted and were on tribal councils that I could say, like, hey, I'm ignorant to this. Like, is this wrong? I don't feel like it is, because there's a mural over on 39th and 39th in Pennsylvania. There's the Native American Cultural Center right there. And there's a mural back there, and it's all Native Americans in red tones.
Right.
So I thought, after seeing that, like, I don't think I'm doing anything wrong, and I know my heart is in it for the right reasons. And one of the first Fridays, like, super drunk white social justice warrior rolled up in there, and they got him on camera, and they like wrote something crazy right over the whole thing. It was a pretty huge hit, and it was before I had the graffiti proof stuff on it. And so I went down there the next day, and I repainted it in yellows, but made the red like exploding off of it.
Right.
And I wrote a line next to it that said, see the light, not the color.
Nice.
Yeah, I remember when I was going back there. I just went back there the other day, actually taking some photos of it. So, Easter eggs, man. You got to be using Easter eggs in you've done too many murals to not be dropping some Easter eggs in these murals. Yeah. Can you talk about your Easter eggs at all?
Oh yeah. One of them is a character name. If you grab that bottle of rum, I think it's over there. I do a character named Party Worm. Oh, okay. And Party Worm has popped up in lots of murals. He's even in the hospitals. He gets around.
Worm is getting around, man.
Yeah. So thank you. This is actually the bottle of rum I made and brought tonight, but I bring it out because I just say it's Party Worm approved. He actually popped up in the mural I just did in Iowa. Okay. He is just a funny random character that, and he did the right thing because you laughed, and that's actually what he's there for. Is to provide randomness and comedy and because it doesn't make sense for a worm to be chilling there with a party hat on.
Does he make it in every mural or most murals?
No. Just when the time's right.
You're feeling it, man.
He's a sneaky dude, man.
It's okay.
But he's been popping up a lot lately, and like on the Love Kansas City wall when I was doing history, and I put in the river wall. And people had painted on the river wall from ATT Crew, which is the crew that East and Gear put me down with Cry. And I painted the river wall, and there's a East piece and a Gear piece and a Cry piece. Most people in Kansas City are probably going to not have a clue. But that's part of the whole underground culture.
Oh, yeah.
And regardless,
Unless you were born before 1990.
yeah. And then there is, that history is really there. And that was me, like next to all these other historical icons and the chiefs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That was me telling my friends, thank you.
Yeah. That's fucking sick, man. You know what I love about that too is the fact that I didn't even notice that. Like, I saw the names, right? Gary's Cry. But what I didn't notice is you actually put like them little as characters in it, like bombing right there, you know? I was like, dude, that's fucking sick, man.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, man. It's in the Riverwall, like, because man, if you were coming up in Kansas City, in the early 90s, man, you saw that. That's exactly what you saw.
That was an old, like what writers would call Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
They there was probably a football field long of different people doing pieces and stuff there, and until the city decided they didn't want it there anymore. So
yeah, man.
and then it went away.
Yeah. So you talked about, we talked about you doing this deal with the hospitals, all your characters, your Easter eggs.
Yeah.
You got into books, man.
Yeah.
You got into books.
Rumpus turned into a story called The Resound Fields. I'll do a quick rundown of what it is, but Rumpus, it takes a lot of stuff from my life. Rumpus is out in Brush Creek, and he's taking photos of a gear piece.
Hey.
It's actually a Quisp piece.
Yeah.
And a giant whale comes out from the Paseo tunnels, the old Paseo tunnels that used to be there, that we had painted in years ago. And it swallows Rumpus and takes him to this island called Nisame. And this island is littered may not be the right word, but there is ancient graffiti all over this island.
Okay.
There are pieces out in the fields, there are pieces in the jungle and stuff, but nobody knows what it is. That's not even part of the story. It's just in the background.
Yeah.
That's a way for me to like consistently honor my friends by its history in the book. It's history for me.
For sure, man.
But it is a story about him and some challenges that are going on in the island. And there's a bad guy, and he is like has a team of 13 bakers who are baking these vampire cupcakes, and he releases. It's like a video game.
Yeah.
He's like, they are releasing them onto the island, and everybody on the island is addicted to them. And it gives everybody what they want. If they're hungry, it feeds them. If they want to escape,
That is so
it helps
sick,
them
man.
escape. And so his first warning when he gets there is this lion tells him, like, don't eat the cupcakes. And then they go on this long adventure, and then they reintroduce DJing to the island. Had been outlawed on the island, and so there's a point at the end where the first record in years was played, and you hear it all over the island, and it kind of starts a weird revolution.
That's dope, man.
How many is that, volume 1? How many books you got, man?
This is volume 1. I finished writing volume 2, and I'm illustrating it right now.
Nice.
It just keeps getting weirder. And even the giant, a lot of the walls that you see around town with our crew are actually woven into the story of the book.
Nice.
So there's a couple giant hamsters that are behind Escapist. And there's all those animals are shooting banana cannons at them, and they're running around in their underwear. And I explain where those hamsters come from in this book.
Okay.
And so I don't want to give that part away.
No,
it's
don't give it away.
But
So, obviously, you did the characters, you did all that in there. Who did the writing?
I did.
You did all the writing.
Yeah, I wrote the whole story, and then
I mean, I'm talking about like the graffiti art.
This part, this lettering part, was done by a guy named Took in Denver.
Okay.
He's a DF crewmate.
Okay.
I wanted it not to look like my stuff and look more scripty, and I always think that my letters look dumb. But
Come on.
Where can if people interested in that book, man, where can they get it at?
I think you can still find it on Amazon. I know that you can find it through my website. I have a big cartel, and if you look up Scribes Walk 40 Threads at Big Cartel, they're available on there. I draw in every book that I mail out for them, and the illustrations change. It's a combination of digital illustrations. Some of the illustrations are literally things I painted on walls as one of the frames in the story, and so it switches from digital to colored pencil to, I wanted it to be something that artists would flip through and be like, whoa, look at all these different ways this guy drew this. And I know that that's what inspired me as a kid, where I'd be like flipping 3 or 4 pages ahead to be like, find the one illustration, you know, and be like, oh, I wonder what's coming. And then I'd flip back and then read those 3 pages. So it's a chapter book that sometimes blends into a comic book, and like it's a non-traditional format for sure. And then the back end of it is full of like, you know, Crew graffiti productions where it was like what I call Resound Fields related characters. The amount of things that people have seen over the years that they didn't realize was part of this world is pretty high.
That's dope, man.
And then also we have this figure, right? The Rumpus. Let's talk about that, man. How many of those figures you got? And where if people want them, man, are they available also?
Yeah, they're still available on my website. I have 2 different Rumpus figures. That was put out by UVD Toys. That's a toy company out of Ohio. And they're like what they call like urban vinyl is like kind of the market for that. And they hit me up and said, hey, we want to make a character. And I seized the opportunity to finally have like a 3D Rumpus and stuff. So he sits on my desk all the time. It's like perfect for being able to hold him, put his head in different like, you know, like positions and stuff, so I can see how Rumpus is supposed to look at.
He moves.
He doesn't, but you know, like I'll be moving him around, and if I want to do a view of like looking up at Rumpus, I can actually like hold him that way and like be able to draw him. So that was like a really fresh, you know, like side thing that came out of it.
I want to talk about this newest piece of art, you know, that you got over here to your right. Can you hold one of those up and let us
hold them both up?
Hold them both up, man. Talk about what these are, where these are from, who was involved, how they came about, all that.
I'll just do that real quick. I think I got it the right way. That's actually a collaboration. Sorry about that. It's a collaboration between a couple of my heroes. You know, East is one of my teachers, and the other guy, Emmett, that I had mentioned earlier, that was from Connecticut but ended up living in Colorado. Those are some of the guys that I really enjoy doing productions with, because they just have a level of excellence to their line work and stuff that I really like. And they let me draw my stupid characters next to them, you know, so
that's a badass character, man.
You know, and so they, that dragon is actually in the next book. That's another like related, like kind of tie over. There's a sea serpent in there.
I'd like to hear that story.
But we had never released a print set that was in the same format as a wall. And that's what I liked about this, was like the 2 of them together are the same format that you're used to walking up to on walls. And I haven't seen that out there a whole lot, and so I pitched that idea to them about us doing a collab together, and after all these years it finally like came together. Man,
that is so sick, man.
Yeah, man, I love it.
How much time do you put into, like, I mean, I know size varies, right? When you're doing a mural versus doing something like that. Is it just you've been doing this long enough now where you're like, man, I know exactly what I want to draw based on this conversation, or, you know, whatever? I'm lucky that a lot of times, like, I meditate on multiple drawings at a time while I'm walking around. I know it sounds weird, but like when I'll go to the restaurant, my wife will probably kill me, but she'll be like, yeah, he does do that. I'll just be staring off into space, and I'm literally drawing in my head, and I can see the things moving. I especially do that right before I go to a wall, because
I like everything in this room. The majority of it was like kind of freestyled.
Okay.
So I don't use projectors and stuff like that. And like, I just like to go up and draw on the wall. And when I get excited and the night before, I have dreams about the steps of painting.
Wow.
And so,
I mean, I think it's cool because, you know, we've had a conversation with Rodrigo and Isaac, man, they were icons. And they use what is the system they
That
use?
method where they
kind
do
of
the numbers.
Doodle grid.
Doodle grid, thank you.
Yeah.
Doodle grid,
Yep.
yeah. And I was like, man, okay, well that makes sense, you know, because they're drawing it on a kind of digital pad, you know, and making it fit and everything. But you came up when there was no technology like that, right?
No, there, you know, that sometimes I really wish there was, because I can think back to a bunch of murals where I'm like, man, I drove by it like a month later and I'm like, that guy's arm looks really small compared to a doodle grid would have fixed that. Thank God it's a cartoon and nobody noticed, or a lot of people are laughing at me behind my back, but
Well, they probably just think
extra
it's part
character,
of it,
man.
yeah,
Extra
but that's the blessing of being a little bit younger and having access to those. I haven't tried the doodle grid method yet. I understand how it all works, and I know I could do it.
Right.
But I think it doesn't make anybody better. It's just I grew up having to figure it out, on my own, and so I draw what I call a series of jelly beans that lock together, and then it makes a character.
Really?
Like there's a bunch of bean shapes. You start looking at my characters, and you're like, there is a bunch of weird beans in there, but their like a body will be a bean, and their legs will be beans, and then I just connect the dots.
I read, we pull everybody up and we do a little bit of a stalking,
Man.
as JL likes to say.
Yeah, we stalk people.
I read that you use your characters, some of them, over from your dogs.
Yeah, I got really dumb looking dogs.
Come on, man.
So I say that with love. I say that about people get weirded out. I say that my characters and my art is stupid.
Hey man,
And
I see the pictures of your dogs,
yeah.
and I see it, man.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
You know,
I say that with total love.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That's and it's partially a joke to like how often people had told me growing up, in the art world, that doing cartoons wasn't art. So when I say it's stupid cartoons, I'm actually kind of laughing back at them.
for sure, slapping the face, man.
But the dogs are dumb. No, they're so awesome.
They are, and the article that I seen that in, Jay, I don't know if you've seen it or not, but you provided pictures of them.
Yeah,
and there's some pictures of them. They're like the little profile, this and that, the other, how they're standing, and I'm like, oh, I see the correlation of it, man.
They got smashed faces. Their eyes are in the wrong place. Their nose is too high.
Man. Great dogs, man.
I got 2 French bulldogs and 2 Boston Terriers. They all got hit in the face with the same pan.
Man. That's great.
There's tater, bacon, fudge, and cake.
Oh, that's their names.
Yeah.
Tater, bacon, fudge, and cake.
Yeah. Tater, bacon, fudge, cake. That's how.
Yeah.
Man, that's all 4 things that I love, man.
Man, come on.
Yeah, it started with our kids naming one of them cake, and then every time we brought something home, it was like, oh, it's got to be food related.
Right.
But I'm sure our neighbors, when they hear us like yelling off the back porch, we're like, bacon! And they're like, God, those people are hungry.
Somebody take them some bacon, please.
Fudge.
I gotta ask you this, man. If you were gonna put an Enterrupt KC mural on a building, side of a building, what would it look like?
What would it look like?
Now that we've had most of this conversation, you've met us, we've talked offline, obviously. You've seen the episodes, you subscribe, you a fan, man.
I think if I did something, I would paint the scene that I'm looking at.
Ah, okay.
I like the idea of like the table, but I would do the 2 Bs, that we talked about. So there's something really cool about like the 2 microphones like coming in. And I think it would be cool to like have 2 bees like floating there.
I want to see it, man.
You got to make Nick.
So.
You got to make Nick like Pendergast right here, just staring at us with the hat. Like, look at these guys.
Yeah, he's been mugging me the whole time and making me nervous.
I would love to see that creation, Scribe, man. No doubt, man.
The KC water mural, man. You just did.
Thanks.
I mean, dude, that is another banger, man, for the city.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
Man, I mean, what happened, man? The city reach out, or do you have multiple pieces, that you're doing for the city?
Not yet. I hope not yet. That was my first project, interestingly enough.
Okay.
Been here for 30 years, and I've always just kind of I think stubbornly was like, I'm going to do everything on my own. And I don't want to get into the city arena stuff.
Right.
That we didn't get along back in the 90s. And so but nothing against the city or anything like that at all. But I think I didn't realize that had carried over, I think. And they're just the right opportunities and stuff weren't coming up. But I work with an organization called Scribe KC, and a friend of mine named Chris runs a lot of that behind the scenes. They're funded by American Shaman. The guy Vince that owns American Shaman is like a huge advocate for street art and stuff in Kansas City, and has been responsible for a ridiculous amount of murals in schools. He's hired a lot of different artists, various artists, and paid them well to do what they love to do, and blessed schools with like motivational type stuff. That got them connected to the city, and then so I'm in like a roster of artists that they like working with, and this one just kind of like fell into place, and so we did that one over on Prospect, and they let me throw out the ideas, and that's probably, unless the right thing came along, that's probably going to be the last KC thing I do for a while. Because like I said, like it just sometimes can be, I think we can kind of overdo stuff, and I like seeing more story-based art, but that was a blast, and that was the right place, I thought, to put another KC. Murals and art had not made it over to that part of the city. Yeah. And when I first started doing it on the first day, I got a lot of weird looks, and it was like, who are you? What are you doing here? And then the moment I put up the first fish and they understood, I mean, some of them figured out who I was, and then other ones were, like, oh, that's really cool. I go fishing all the time, and it would start beautiful conversations. And by the time I was done, like, it was crazy how many people were just yelling and screaming and yay, it was a long, far, difference from having our sandwiches thrown at, or having sandwiches thrown at us at Big Dudes. So it's like it was a totally different thing. But I'm also working with Scribe KC on a project with Core KC down. We've got a project down Port KC. We have a project. Gear and I and East and a couple other ATT members got to do something on the Riverwall. It's currently down there. There's that little bridge that goes over the train tracks that a lot of people put locks on.
So, got that stairwell.
Yes.
Man.
So when you're going down the stairwell and you pop out at the stairwell, there's a giant graffiti production there now. And we did a lot of Missouri fish. We thought it was really cool that they allowed ATT to like return to that spot and supported us. But Port KC and Scribe KC asked me to find some other artists to start adding on to that wall. And so I've been luckily asked to do another mural there. Actually, I was mentioning Emit earlier. He's coming in and doing a piece. So there's another lettering piece on there, which I'm extremely excited about, because a lot of like these street art festivals, they don't include lettering people. And so that was kind of one of my things that I was really passionate about, was that history that made all those colors and spray paint. That's why those spray paint companies started doing all that stuff. they should still be a part of the conversation. But we have a girl named Nicole Salgar coming in from Florida, a girl named Chelsea Lewinsky coming in from Denver, a guy named Birdcap is coming in from Memphis, and I also got Alexander Austin, who is another mural OG that maybe you should talk to sometime. He did all the Martin Luther King murals down Troost and all that stuff.
Oh,
The black and white ones.
Yes,
Yeah.
and he did all the stuff over here on One Light and Two Light, all that big stuff up top.
Yeah, right there where you see, right?
Yes.
Off the highway.
Yeah. So him, which I'm excited about because we haven't painted in the same vicinity. We've known each other for 30 years, but never painted that close to each other like that. So we're going to be doing that, and that's a cool closer because when I moved here, you know, like you've interviewed Juan, I saw the murals that like Jenny was involved with. I knew, I think it was, her name was Leanne, but I knew her last name is LaFond. I can't remember the last name that Jenny mentioned in there. But I think even at the time that she did the murals, she may have still been LaFond as a last name. Those ones that were over there, I knew about Juan's stairs, and then there was like the Martin Luther King murals, and Jose Faust and and Gambino, and like so when I moved to Kansas City and those things were popping up around, those were all like huge inspirations for me for doing like large scale work.
I was gonna say, man, like you talked about earlier, Scribe, how people are like cheering when they see the finished product and stuff. Man, it just has to be different. The fact that, you know, you're out in broad daylight. You're not out at night with the backpack, you know.
Yeah, it's a different time.
You know, I mean, you know, people are proud to see the work that you're doing, man. So, I mean, shout out, man. Like, we love the work that you've done and the work that 100%. You're going to continue to do, man.
I've been really lucky to see this city. This city has a tendency to sometimes, like, knee-jerk react to stuff that's different. And in usual form, that's what they did when they first saw Gear and I. But after the smoke clears, they did that with like all those sculptures on top of Bartle Hall.
Oh my God!
People flipped out on that. They were like, "Oh, the Jackson birdhouses and all that stuff." And then they put the shuttlecocks on the Nelson lawn, and people were like, "Yo, what's that about?" And so there's this history of seeing people kind of like trip out when something new and weird shows up, and then watching it slowly become owned. When earlier when I was talking about big dudes and it was removed, I didn't get to that point, but like that was one of the times I felt like we were part of Kansas City, because the amount of emails I got and calls of like, yo, they took down big dudes, we're mad, we're like ready to riot, and I was like,
what?
Oh, like it's okay. And I'm getting, I had a website called scribeswalk.com, and the amount of emails I got through that just like really shook me up, because it instantly took me back to what we were dealing with when we were painting it. It polarized people. It was either these like weirdo Westport hippies and stuff, or young kids were like, this is dope, or there were people just hating on us,
throwing hamburgers at you, man.
And so then to have it like when it was gone, I didn't hear people saying, oh, thank God it's finally gone. I didn't hear any of that. All I heard was like, yo, you took our mural, and I was like, oh, it's your mural now? Like that's pretty fresh. Like I started to feel like, and that was one of the stories where I was like, whoa, I feel like I'm part of Kansas City.
I mean, that Love Kansas City mural, I hope it stays around for at least another 20 years.
It should.
It's classic,
doubt,
bro.
Man.
It's been protected the right way. So, if hopefully Ford has retired and sold the business and they moved. And hopefully it becomes an inhabited space and doesn't get torn to the ground and become like another apartment building or a parking lot or something. But it's the nature of the beast. And so that's part of the reason why, people like Gear and I keep doing it, is because it's a revolving door of art, and every time one of those gets torn down, sometimes it hurts, but then you have to be motivated to go put up something in its place.
Do another one, yeah.
I mean, you've done some classic stuff around the city, man. Have you ever had situations where people are like taking credit for your art, or like taking photos or anything like that and selling it?
Yeah, biggest problem I've had, honestly, is like photographers not understanding laws. And so the basic breakdown of that is if you take a picture of a mural and it's the only thing in the picture, and what sells the picture is that it's the mural,
Right.
not the architecture, not anything else, then that's a copyright violation.
Okay.
Now, you take a picture of a building and my mural is way off in the right or something, and there's like 100 other things going on, and it's all that like outside architecture, then you can argue in court that my mural is not, or character is not the thing that's selling it.
Right.
It's the whole shot.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of photographers, because anybody can buy an expensive digital camera now, and everybody's a photographer.
Right.
So we've run into people at like the Westport Art Fair and stuff like that, just straight up taking like a zoomed in shot of one of the bees, and that's all it is, and then it
Trying to sell it.
Well, yeah, and it not just sell it, but then it says copyright Bob Smith Photography. And you're like, for real? Like you took a picture of a close-up of a bee, and then the copyright symbol gives the impression to the person that's bought it. They don't even honor the artist.
Right.
And this happens to lots of people that paint murals around here. It hasn't just been mine, but I've even gone into gallery shows where it's just straight up my characters on the wall.
No shit.
You know, I busted a lady at the Penn Valley had like a show there, and the lady did a talk on it, and it was just straight up close-ups of my stuff along with some other people, and she was telling people we were friends.
Man, I go
like,
rip that shit off the wall, man. Give me my stuff.
So I showed up at the show.
Showed up and showed out.
So, yeah. She said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "You can start by taking it down," and you should have seen the people scatter.
Oh,
Yeah.
So,
Well, good, man. Good,
you got to protect that stuff. But I understand why it's confusing to people, because what people end up saying is that it becomes public domain and it's public art the moment that it's put out there. And there's a small nugget of truth in there, but also that's not totally true either.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, when you look around the town now, Scribe, I mean, it's crazy, man, because he's just sitting here talking to you, right? Like, I'm going back 30 years, just in my mind, of what the original stuff I seen, just going back to the, East Scribe, cry on the river walls type of thing. What do you think, man, the graffiti art scene today in Kansas City?
It's thriving, it's doing its thing, and it's, going through the different levels of evolution that it does. Like, I also, I don't think it's something that I should comment on, because, like, I'm not living that part of the life anymore. And so I'm not going to pretend that I understand what it is in its current iteration. But I enjoy seeing all kinds of cool stuff when I'm driving around town. That was what got me into it. I've always been a fan. There's a lot of people that might think that because my history and path has gone a certain way that I would be unsupportive of them, but they've never sat down and talked to me. Sometimes if you're blessed with a little success, then there's rumors.
Right.
Of course.
And so
haters gonna hate, man.
Yeah, or misunderstandings are going to happen, and so there's a lot of it that I watch people evolve over a year, and that's fascinating, and it's like, it takes me back to times when I was first getting into stuff and like figuring things out, and watching things like people figure stuff out is fascinating. And then I wonder how long, if that's going to be a part of their life forever, or is it not, and a lot of people don't want to go into the full art game and stuff because the art game's a pain in the butt. It's
oh man.
What I wanted to ask you too, man, to kind of go a different, also same direction, but let's talk about you got kids.
Yeah.
They're artists as well.
Man.
Yeah.
Man, and I've seen your boys' work, man. I follow him.
Someone, man, they're talented.
Man, let's give his what's his social media, man?
He goes by Smuggles. It's _Smuggles.
Smuggles.
Yeah.
How old is he?
He is turning 21 in January.
Yeah.
Okay.
And how long has he been since he picked up a pen?
Yeah, he was, both Elisa and I have Jonah and Elijah.
Okay.
Jonah just turned 18 several days ago. And both of them, they're in a creative home. My wife's an artist. She makes she's a fabric artist, and she did a lot of stuff with me on the hospitals. But they're just around it, and
they just picked it up.
Well, and we were afraid we'd see parents that were into sports and stuff get really aggressive with their kids, or not just sports, other ones where they're like trying to make super kids in whatever it is that their kid gets into. And we kind of tried our best to take an approach where it was like, if you showed interest in it, that the proof of interest is if you asked for more questions or asked for help.
Yeah.
Right.
And so when they would come to us, I would tell them, like, if there's anything you want to know about art and you're really into it, and you say, how do I do this?
Yeah.
Boom, I'm going to sit down and do it. But I'm not going to get all excited the next time you do something really fresh and then be like, yo, tomorrow you got to, you have to do this. And then I think I'd probably do it every once in a while. And I've probably been doing that with my almost 21-year-old a little bit lately, because I can see it's going to be hard to be an artist in the future with AI and all this other junk that's going on out there that I'm trying my best to look out for him, but he's going to figure it out because he's smart, he's dope, he's creative.
Yeah, man, he does some really great work.
He does,
man.
and both of them. I mean, the younger one's a really great cartoonist, but I think he probably, knowing him, he's really smart in his own right, and he probably looked at me and was like, that looks like that doesn't look fun, because he's seen me get all stressed out at times, and it's a lot of hard work.
Does either one of them kind of do the same or similar characters, or do they do something completely different? For those that don't know,
Elijah did characters that were kind of a combination of me and that Japanese manga stuff, because that's so popular and prevalent with kids. Jonah has his own style, which I love, and his sense of humor is just banging, so funny and left field for me. And his characters are so goofy looking in the right way and creative. He only does it. He only pulls it out when he feels like doing it. He builds mopeds, and he's builds 70s and 80s scooters and mopeds and stuff, and is getting into fancy painting that way. And that's what I think I didn't finish with, was we didn't push on him to do the art stuff. It was just, well, if you're going to get into that, just have a creative outlook on how to solve problems. That's such a huge thing with kids, is they don't know how to creatively assess a situation in life and find a workaround or a side hustle or something to that in order to change it. That's the creative edge that was more important to get us for us to get into them, rather than this is how you do art, because they're going to find that part on their own. I know that my path for my parents was and probably is still challenging to them in certain ways, and I understand that. Now that I'm older and they're choosing to go into their paths, I've seen things that probably my parents went through.
Yeah, of course.
And they are choosing to and do things, and I'm trying to constantly remind myself I did a good job. And they're going to figure it out, and they're going to fall on their face, and they're going to figure it out and fall on their face again. And I'm going to just be there when it's necessary, and also trust that I don't know. like what the answer is on all of it. And it,
Sure.
from especially the last 6 months to a year, I've just been trying to figure out when to back off and just say nothing at all.
Yeah.
Spoken like a dad, man. I mean, believe me, we can relate to that.
Yeah.
Spoken like a dad.
Yeah.
So Scribe, man. Okay, man. There's so much, man. We, from your early hardships, right? Then the big dudes. You got Children's Mercies. You got the jet. You got the helicopter. You got the ambulance, man. You got your figurines. You got your books. I also read that you was involved with EA Sports.
I did. Oh, yeah.
Did you do something for EA Sports and Madden?
Yeah, I did. I did a portrait of Mahomes.
Man,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that was like post-COVID or around all of that stuff. So it like kind of flew, in a weird direction. But I did a live painting of and filmed myself doing a painting for that, and I don't play those games, so I didn't fully understand how it was all like used. But when they
just having that in your resume, man, come on, brother.
That was a wild one. It was I was supposed to give it directly to Mahomes, and we had something scheduled, and that was when I think COVID just started to hit, so it was unfolding. And I was wrapping up the project, and then they were like, we don't know how we're gonna get it to him, like, and it was like, yo, you can drive up to, I think he lived in Mission Hills at the time, and it was like, we're gonna drive it up and like do a drop off, and it was like the distance kept growing, and then eventually it was like, we're gonna mail it to him.
But he still, but he has it.
Well, listen,
I don't think I'm not, honestly, I'm not sure where it went from there. I ended up mailing it to.
Supposed to be.
Something was supposed to happen with it. So.
Somebody has
man,
it.
Listen, Patrick, we know you're watching the show, man. Come help out our boy.
Show that, man. Show that in the back.
Yep, and do good tomorrow night.
Hey, do good tomorrow night. All right, man. Couple little fun questions, man, before we wrap this up, Scribe. So, the Riverwall event you talked about with all the artists. When is that? What is the date on that? Is that like an event, or is that just something separate? How?
Thanks for circling back to that. So that's with Port KC, and we'll have 6, 7 artists down there. And September 28th, which is a Saturday, is the day that the artists will wrap up. I've got 3 DJs playing down there. DJ Bill Pyle, DJ Mike Scott, and my good friend DJ Ataxic. They'll be playing like funk, like whatever, hip hop and stuff down there. Food trucks, and then some like artists will have some booths and stuff as the artists like wrap it up. So it's like, I don't want to call it a mural festival, but it's like a super mini version of it. I've been lucky that they've allowed me to be so involved in it and help them with that project. And I think anybody that comes down there is probably going to have a blast, because I'm
going to come.
Each artist,
I'm telling you that.
Actually,
right
I'm trying to, if you guys want to do some live stuff, I'm going to try to like get you linked in if you want to do something like that.
Here we go.
So we can get you a booth down there, and like, you guys could be like those 2 old guys from the Muppets and just
let's go.
scream at the artists.
Let's go.
What are you doing?
I'm down with that, man. I mean, there's some legends, man, you name. So
Emid will be down there, and like Gear and all of them, they already have a piece down there. And so if you haven't seen it, this is a great opportunity to get down there and see artists painting live. And like I said, Spray KC and all of those cats are the ones that did it. One of the artists is working with Big Rip Brewing, and she's doing a customized like art can. So there'll be a beer release down there that has like mural art on it, and a lot of fun stuff going on.
All right, Scribe. So we talked about a lot of stuff, man. You shared some amazing stories. Of course, your story, man, just coming here in Kansas City, and then up till today, street art, graffiti, particularly back in the 90s, man. Kansas City, urban core Kansas City. It was, people don't understand like how different where we are today. was,
Yeah.
you know, and we talked a lot about that with Gear and a number of other people. Just Kansas City has changed so much in 30 years. But my guess, man, is that you guys being out here middle of the night, early in the morning, doing what you do, it had to grab the attention of just people from neighborhoods who also want to put their gang or their thing on walls and stuff. Did you guys ever get into some sort of confliction with people like that?
No, because I think for the most part, I don't ever recall like having anybody diss our stuff.
Yeah. It was just completely.
It was accepted, you know, more because it was
respect.
Yeah, it's a respect for the art. It's respect for. Yeah, I get that.
East,
man.
East grew up in Chicago and had been around a lot of that stuff, and there was, there were things that we knew not to do. It was like even if you were going up to a place and then, there was something from like somebody that was local that, had some kind of code behind it.
Right. Don't go mess with it.
Move over to the right, and somewhere else or find a different wall because that area has been claimed or whatever, even if you thought that was kind of silly that, you don't own this wall or whatever. But,
that's how it was back then.
Yeah. You just knew that like, it's not worth it. It wasn't, there's so many other walls, so many other places. And so there wasn't ever any of those kinds of conflicts and stuff. So,
you know what I catch myself doing now, just when I'm driving, even now in the city, man, when I'm driving, if I see a big old wall somewhere, I'm like, man, somebody needs to get a hold of that and do something great, man. There's a lot. There's so many,
I just saw one on Boulevard, if you're listening, Boulevard. I was driving with my son to school actually this morning, and there was we have a couple thousand road closures around here right now. And so I'm zigzagging through the neighborhood, and they took me down the street I don't usually drive, and that was the first thing I saw was I just totally like rubbernecked sideways. I was like, Jonah, you see the size of that wall?
Man.
I can't believe that nobody's painted that. It's actually all pure white too. Like it was like primed and ready.
Yeah. Well, even like that, the current, even at the current around that stadium, like they got something going on there, like in the little hallway there or whatever, right? But you got these big white walls around there. There should be something. I don't know if they got something planned, but
I've heard rumors that they are interested in looking into exploring art, but I don't know much more than that. At that kind of level in city stuff, it's like I never take it seriously until they're saying go.
Until they're knocking on that door.
We're gonna ask, man. Like we're in early talks with somebody over there to maybe do something with them.
Oh, good.
So we're definitely asked that question. We get them on here for real.
I've heard them pop up multiple times in different groups specifically about mural stuff and doing things there. So, we'll see.
So you get that, man. Just remember this Enterrupt KC.
Yeah, man.
Definitely.
Throw them bees, man. Throw them bees on there, man.
JL, D-Rod, throw Nick up in there, man.
Man.
All right. You gave a shout out to a number of artists, man. Is there any other artists you want to give a shout out to locally and around the nation? Anything
around
like that
the world,
that you work
man.
with?
Yeah, I in particular, I just really would like to say, what's up to a lot of my ATT and DF crew fam. We have a lot of crew members in Chicago and San Francisco, and there's a lot to mention. They all have their different levels of impact on what I'm doing.
Right.
Even if we don't talk every day, like we have like group chats that we speak in through Instagram and stuff like that, where we're constantly like, that's one of the beautiful things about technology and the internet is that before it used to be photos and kind of disconnected and you'd have to send photos, but it was a lengthy process. The instant nature of us all in a group chat and like showing each other things and like encouraging each other, to do art and stuff. There's so much talent here in Kansas City, but Yeah, it's just, thanks to, I can't ever say enough, like, thanks to Gear and East and Cry for taking me under their wing, because it changed my life. And I think that when people ask me, like, where my influences are, I can list all these, like, cartoonists and stuff, but their graffiti and street art influence and color schemes and things that were infused into me are things that I think I would have missed at the Art Institute.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
And if you said, oh, I drive by something and I see something that reminds me of Scribe, and I know it's Scribe when I see those things. I mean, part of it is I work really hard at that, and it's a blessing to hear that somebody recognizes it, because there's a lot of people that are really talented and create art, and then people forget who their names are. And I can't believe it, because I think there's so many people out there that are better than me at what they're doing, and just something hasn't taken a hold of for them yet. So I'm appreciative of that, but what I gotta say is that part of the reason why I think those things are memorable is it's concentrating on trying to make a difference in style, and the lucky group of friends that I made that infused that, for lack of better words, they infuse that funk in there.
For sure. We asked Gear this question. I think I want to ask you too. ATT. What's that mean to you? He said people have many different.
Yeah, there's a ton of them.
Yeah.
So there's
which way do you use
like above the theatrics.
Above the theatrics. All right.
Is a good one. Abstracting the topography is like the main staple one, but we change it all the time. Too, and the other crew I'm in, DF, we've called it, like I did a mural just because I wanted to do the dumbest thing with DF, and I did one called Donkey Fur, and I painted a giant donkey with a gremlin shaving its back.
Oh, nice!
And he was shaving the word DF out of his back or something. And, sometimes we use those letters to jumpstart the whole
project.
Abolishing the tyrants. Things like that. You can just you can keep going, but there are so many times that we even come up with a mural idea, and then that sparks ways of how can we tie ATT into that stuff? And so you'll see it changing. But ATT is a lettering crew first, and that's the history of graffiti.
Yeah.
And so, I jokingly say I'm a character guy. I'm a cheerleader.
Right.
So,
I just wanted to ask you, because I remember Gear said that. He was like, it means so many different things to so many different people. Yeah. And I just want to put here what your outlook on the
above the theatrics is a big one, because I think for me, because I think ATT has done a really good job of staying out of the drama and stuff, and that was that's a Kansas City, at least I would say 90s Kansas City thing, was we did a really good job of trying our best to stay out of drama between each other. There was little things that popped up, but in comparison to other cities, that Midwestern chill value of even if I'm not going to like you, I'm just going to go over here and do my thing instead of
and that's something that Kansas City's pretty known for even now. Man. Just the hospitality, chill vibe or whatever, for the most part. Everybody says that. Who
so
comes
many
here,
people love coming here to paint. Because they like the fact that there's access to stuff, which is so strange to hear, because when we first started and the city wasn't feeling it, way different. You wouldn't have thought that was going to become the case. And then when it normalized, or whatever you want to call it, that Midwestern value of welcoming spirit kind of took over. And I hear all the time, they're I had no idea. They'd show up here and they'd be like, this place is way doper than I thought. I thought it was going to be cornfields or something like that.
Farms. Dorothy. Statue of Dorothy somewhere.
It's the Paris of the Plains.
Man, I read that you play a saxophone.
I did, yeah.
No,
I
no
did.
more?
No.
Hey, man, that's kind of one of those things, man. That's
yeah.
one of those things, right? We said it earlier, you know, you might pick it back up, still get on it.
No, I
Saxophone's
thought
cool,
about
man.
I thought about going to music school instead of art school, and
So that was a long time ago?
yeah, and
You can still pick it up and get down there.
I have one now, and like that blew my kids away because it probably had been 15, 20 years.
You picked it up, start blowing?
I picked it up and just started going, and they were like,
Whoa, Dad.
Dad's got a whole secret life, or something. And then I quickly put it away.
Yeah.
I struggle with that one because I have ideas of going back to it.
Yeah,
but,
man, let's do it, man.
I'm so into drawing and stuff that like every time I go down another tunnel of something and get too far into it, like I like fishing, but I don't like go overboard in it.
Right.
Because for me, it's like everything is taking away time from the thing I love the most.
That you love the most. I got you, man. I got you, JL, man. I talked about this a couple times. And I brought that up for one reason only, that I talked about a harmonica many times.
Man, this guy.
I love a harmonica.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for him to bust out one.
Your boy got one, man. Your boy got one. I went and got one. I'm gonna get a set though, and I was like, man, I should call him, tell him bring that sax, and let's have a jam session real quick.
Here we go,
man.
No, it's been so long, but like, I mean, there's the one that's in here. There's if you get a shot of it, the Rhino with the saxophone.
Yeah.
There's always a special part in my heart.
That's one of them Easter eggs, right? You throw something else in there.
Yeah. And moving to a city that's so rich in jazz history, is something dear to my heart too.
I was gonna say, Scribe, man, don't be lying, man. You was down there on 18th and Vine jamming it up.
Yeah.
You'd be like, hey, yo, Gary, I gotta go somewhere. I'll be right back.
Yeah. I mean, I heard somebody in the background be like, "Get Kenny G out of here."
Oh man,
I love it, man. Yeah. So, okay, best food in Israel.
Best food in Israel.
You remember?
If I go to Israel, which I'd love to do one day, what do I gotta go eat?
I was huge into what they call like shawarmas, which are kind of popping up a whole lot more now. But you'd see like that really huge spit of meat, and they shave it off and put it in, like a gyro or
That's
whatever.
like pastor, right? That's
Man,
like pastor.
I'm Mexican,
Exactly,
so I get down with that. You just throw it in the tortilla, man, for me.
Oh, that would be perfect. And those flavors
down there, do they put it like in pita bread or something?
They do, yeah,
right.
a bunch of different
Something
kinds
like
of like flatbreads and stuff like that. But they
same concept.
For a long time, when I moved back to KC, those were not legal to put inside of restaurants for health code reasons. So it was like outside of the safety zone for the U.S. Right. But I've been seeing it pop up. There's that place called Shawarma King or whatever that's over there. So something either changed or moved over, but that's what I had heard. And so when that started popping up, I was excited. But when we went to Israel, that was like one of the first things that we went for. And
I imagine it's a lot better than what they try to make here.
Yeah. And my wife and my mom both make like great homemade falafel too.
Okay.
They can hook that stuff up too.
Yeah, dope, man. I'm gonna remember this because I love to make it out there one day.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to have some fun now, man. Okay. We're going to talk about Kansas City specifically. As you know, Scribe, we are Enterrupt KC, people, places, and things here in Kansas City.
Yes, sir.
And so we do a little verses, okay, with our guests. Now, I'm going to go first because D-Rock gets mad at me whenever I make him go first.
Makes that every time.
I make him go first every time. So I'll go first, man. All right, here we go. Eddie Griffin versus Jason Sudeikis.
Ooh, that's tough. I'm gonna say Sudeikis because he wore my shoes.
Oh, for real?
You did?
What shoes did he wear?
I hand painted some shoes for him.
No way.
Is that right?
When did he wear them? Like where?
He was doing a fundraiser for Steps of Faith, which raises money for people with lost limbs who can't afford to buy the limbs. A friend of his that he went to high school with started that organization. They just sold out. They're having another fundraiser here pretty soon, and they just sold it out. but he's really a big Nike head.
Okay.
And so for a couple years, I hand painted shoes, and like he wore a pair of my shoes on that show Complex.
Yeah,
Is that right?
yeah.
Man, that's
So-
badass.
Yeah,
man.
so I mean,
You know,
I can't help
That's
it.
a shoe.
Like,
That's a
so-
sneaker. That's a sneaker.
Man.
Yeah,
You know,
no, that was a big deal.
I was gonna bring that up because I seen a shoe brand that had, I just seen it the other day, and I took a picture of it, and I thought about you because they're selling at the store, and they had, you know, characters all on there.
Yeah.
And I was like, man.
That's what I did was
Scribe.
I painted characters on there, and then one of the fundraisers that was done was people were bidding on a pair. So he wore them on stage, but they were in his size.
Yeah.
And then people bid on the ability to get the next pair from me. So so him and Billy, the guy that ran it, and whoever won the bid would be the 3 people that would have that Scribe shoe.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice,
That's
nice.
sick, man.
Maybe I'll get back into that.
Man.
You know, there are all kinds of sneakerheads.
Yeah,
man.
no, that is a big
deal, man.
game. So yeah.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. So, I'm sure you know who this is, but Cartoon out in L.A.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they put out all this cool, like, you know, culture, Chicano, Hispanic, Mexican culture stuff from L.A., but all of it has, like, L.A. on it, Los Angeles. And,
Yep.
and I'm looking at this like, yeah, these shoes are cool, but
Yeah.
I ain't rocking no LA shit.
Yeah,
you know what
yeah.
I mean? I mean, no disrespect, but I'm like, man, we need somebody in Kansas City to do some Kansas City shoes.
There are some people out there. I'd have to dig for them, but there's a small culture of those people that are like really dedicated to that. And I've done it, you know, and like, I mean, from what I've been told, that they were like, well, this is done the right way.
Right.
And it was fun to, you know, do it for a good cause and stuff.
So I
no
can't
doubt,
just
no
hand you
doubt.
some white Air Force Ones. Here you go, Scribe.
Yeah, that's
Do
what I
these
did
for me.
before. Yeah, I've done a couple
There you
commissions.
go, man.
All right, cool.
All right, I got it. Okay, I got another one. Here we go, man. Pat Mahomes versus Bobby Witt Jr. They both signed big deals, man.
Yeah. I'm still a Mahomes fan. So
Mahomes gotta be,
Gotta
man.
be Mahomes.
Yep.
He done made it, man. He done made
Man,
it. He
well,
gonna, he gonna do it tomorrow.
They
we
gonna
said.
three-peat. They gonna three-peat.
Three-peat, man.
We
Yeah.
already talked about that.
Hey, but Bobby
He's
Witt,
just-
man,
he
you know,
seems
we
like a
can't
nice
sleep
guy.
on Bobby Witt, man.
Yeah.
He's already broken some records. They're close. You know, he's up there with Brett.
Yeah, that's just, I'm answering that because I'm biased.
I got you, man. I got you.
Arthur Bryant or Ollie Gates?
Arthur Bryant's. That's a easy one for me. I respect the whole Gates like history and stuff, but if I were to add the reason when I didn't have any money and we used to paint down in what they call the groove over there and the line, like East used to take me over there and that was how he fed me.
Wow.
And so that was how I have a fond history of that because they made giant sandwiches. You know, like they gave you so much meat, and we would take it back to the train line, and we would just sit there and eat sandwiches and watch trains.
Tell
go
people
by.
that all the
So,
time, right? Like,
Yeah,
if you
that's-
want your money's worth, go to Arthur Bryant.
Yes.
Because there you're
Man,
gonna
I
get.
go there and I get the double beef.
Yeah.
I get the double beef, man. They, you know, he just grabs it like that.
Yeah,
Wow.
they hook you up, and but for me, like every time I drive by that, you know, through 18th and Vine, and I see that building, I get flashbacks of being with my friend.
Sure.
Yeah.
Nice.
Sure. Okay. I got a place for you. All right. Let's see if you know this one. Right. Kitty's Cafe versus Town Topic.
For the same dish.
Whatever, man.
Sure.
What are you getting at either one? Well, right. I mean, they're both kind of the same deal. The
I
greasy.
think Kitty's the
They got burgers there.
yeah, but there's a pork
Tenderloin.
sandwich there.
Kitty Cafe tenderloin.
Yeah, it's been a minute since
Yeah.
I've been into.
It's been a minute for me too.
For Town Topic. That was another one that was like a late night one. If we were painting,
man.
we
For
were
sure.
in there for like
Three
the fried
in the
smash
morning?
burger. Yeah, so I don't know. That's a tie.
That's a tie. Kitty's Cafe, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Kitty's Cafe, I think they only take cash too. You can't walk in there with nothing else,
Yep.
man.
Haven't they moved? Have they moved?
They're still there on 31st Street.
They are?
Yeah, they're still
Okay.
there.
All right. I thought they moved farther down.
All right. Stroud's or Go Chicken Go?
Oh, man. I've had plenty of gizzards from Go Chicken Go.
Cheese sauce.
Yeah. But I haven't been to Stroud's in a long time. So I'm going to say Go Chicken Go.
Go Chicken Go.
Yeah.
Gizzards,
For sure, man.
Gizzards.
The G sauce, gizzards.
Yeah. I don't need like a giant plate. I mean, just a.
You do the half order?
It's like whatever the gizzards, whatever that amount is, it's
You know,
I only do that at once in a blue moon.
Right,
too.
right.
Go Chicken Go got that wing pack. That's infamous, right?
Yeah.
You go to Stroud's, you're getting 4 pieces.
Yeah.
You're
Yep.
getting a half a chicken, period.
Yeah. I think it's because I usually leave Stroud's like hobbling or something. Like
It's always hurt. Your stomach's hurt, man. And then they give you those cinnamon rolls at the end.
like so. I overdo it, so I just like it. It's kind of like you go from loving it to hating it. You know?
Right. All right, I'm going to give you Italian spots, man. Let's see which ones you pick. All right. Copini's Deli. All right, Copini's versus Johnny C's Deli.
I haven't been to Johnny C's.
You've never been to Johnny C's?
Nope. So I can't answer.
Oh,
Yeah.
man, okay.
Yeah, I haven't been there.
All right, well, then it's Copini's.
Yeah. Gotta be Cupini.
Yep.
Johnny C's. You been, J.O., you been Johnny C's?
I have.
No,
down
I
there
haven't
on
been
Front
to-
Street, man.
Okay, I'll go try it.
Check it out.
Yeah, it's
Sorry, I
great,
haven't.
man.
Yeah.
It's
All
great.
right. Hopefully you've been to these places. Q39 or Rosedale Barbecue?
Ooh, that's tough. I see the barbecue argument. Somebody was asking me this in Iowa, and they were like, "What's your favorite barbecue?" They were like, I guess they ended up being from Leawood or something, and they rolled up on me in the middle of nowhere.
Of course.
They rolled up on me in the middle of nowhere in Clinton, Iowa, and they were like, "What's your favorite barbecue?" And I just turned around. I was like, "It depends on what you're ordering."
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
like I like the, burn ins at like certain companies, and
Yeah.
so.
I feel you on that. That's what I say all the time.
You know, if I'm going a little bit fancier on the sandwich side, I'm a like Q39 fan, but like I do like the Rosedale barbecue, like burn-ins and stuff too. So like, I can't hate.
Rosedale's an OG, man.
I've enjoyed meals at both of those places.
I just went to Q39 last week, man, and man, those ribs.
Yeah. So there's, I don't know if you've been there.
Chicken wings, man.
I'm biased because I painted it, but there's a place called Hog Jaw Barbecue.
I have been there.
So,
right
but
there on
that-
Swift.
Yeah. So, but that smoked like mac and cheese that has the
Yes,
brisket
sir.
and stuff in it is like
Yeah.
pretty bomb too.
Yeah, hog
Nice.
jaw.
Yeah.
And the ribs. The ribs are good,
they're
man.
good
I went down there too.
Yeah.
Yep. Firefighter owned.
For sure. Okay, let's do a thing. All right, how about the Grinders venue versus Knuckleheads venue?
Grinders.
Grinders.
Yep.
The outside deal, same deal. They're both
Yeah.
outside.
I just missed a concert there, man. I really wanted to go to.
Oh, was that the Ice Cube?
No, man, was it Grinders?
It was.
It was
Cube
no,
was
not Cube. Don't laugh at me. But it was
Come on, man! I'm very
man. It was
K-pop thing or
No,
something?
it was Jamie Johnson. He's a country dude.
Okay.
Dude,
I'm
Jamie
not
Johnson.
laughing. Yeah.
He gets down, man.
You like country music?
No.
No. Damn it. All right. At least you didn't laugh at me.
No, I'm not. I wouldn't laugh at anybody, man. I love people that just love music in general. You know, that if they're
for sure.
passionate about it, I know
I like all
several
kinds of
people that
music,
are like,
man.
I don't even like music, and I'm like, that doesn't even make sense.
What's
to
wrong
me.
with them, man?
Yeah, I know.
How can you not?
Yeah.
Music calms a savage beast, man.
Man.
Yep.
All right. This is a unique one. I-35 or I-70?
For what?
You tell
Transport?
us.
Transport, man.
Which one you like the most?
Oh, which one do I like the most? I-70 is more chill for me.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, just I struggle.
Yeah, it
I,
is. It's kinda
I
chill.
struggle with being calm on 35. And there's a part of 435 that's partially like that too. But you know, like I don't know. I'm probably gonna get in trouble for saying this, but it feels like it changes when the further south I go, the more frustrated I get.
Yeah.
Congestion, man. That congestion is crazy.
Well, I don't know if it's that. I think
The people.
Yeah. All right, one more, D-Rod.
Okay, man. I'm gonna give you three to choose from. All right. Here we go. The Irish Fest, the Italian Fest, or Fiesta Hispana.
that's tough.
I know.
I'm not going to say the Irish Fest, and I had a lot of that in Boston.
Right.
So, like, I would say the last one.
Fiesta Hispana.
Yeah.
Shout out, man.
Shout out, man.
Hey, so just a little reminder, we're gonna be there. We're gonna be there, man. We're gonna be there.
14th.
Nice.
Saturday,
Yeah, man.
2 to 5. All right, Scribe, here we go, man. So tell us you're from KC without telling us you're from KC.
I said it earlier. I thought about this for a little bit, but this is a really old school, obscure one, and that's the Paris of the Plains.
Oh, okay.
So that was what Kansas City used to be called back in the day because of their culture. They were like at the time like trying to be really forward thinking on their artistic culture and stuff like that. And since I think Kansas City still does a good job of that, you don't really hear it called that very often.
Right.
I'm not really sure what the time period was. You were talking like jazz era, but there was a time where there was like so many people making crazy clothes here, and clothes designers and clubs and jazz and all that stuff. So it was romantically called the Paris of the Plains. And
there it is.
Kansas City's trying to, like they're having a renaissance in some ways. Like when I moved here in '93, this neighborhood we're sitting in was empty.
It was, man, completely.
And so seeing all this stuff like revised, and parts of it are fresh, some of it's not, but they're like kind of pushing towards that Paris feeling again. Not actually Paris, but just the cultural vibe. Like picking it up on the cultural stuff.
Right on, man. Well, look, Scribe, man, thank you very much for taking your time out, sitting with us, man. It's been a blast, and everything you've been a part of, man. I'm happy to know you, happy to talk to you, and everything that I see about you, man. Is there anything that you'd like to share with us, with our audience, that we didn't touch on, man?
No, just thanks for making it easy. I was nervous about doing this and everything, and so thank you for having grace. Thank you for making it easy to talk and stuff, and I had a good time doing it. And so,
well, thank you for this beautiful beverage
this helped, man,
that you created, man.
And Party Worm approved.
Party Worm approved, man.
And one last salute to you, Scribe, man. Seriously, man. Thank you for everything you've done, man, in Kansas City. Thank you for everything you're going to continue to do. You are a true legend, man, in the town, man. So thank you.
Yes, sir.
Shout out to Alicia and your kids, man. Being a great dad, man. That's what matters most.
Appreciate it. Yes, it is.
So with that, Enterrupt KC, JL,
D-Rod.
we are out of here, Kansas City. Like, follow, subscribe, share this episode.
Yes.
We got some giveaways, man, from our guy Scribe. Peace.
Bye.